Welcome to episode 85 of the Grip Strip podcast. The Denny Hamlin is butthurt about something yet again before he goes and chokes away another championship edition of the Grip Strip podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm here with my co-host Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Apparently Alex Bowman is a hack, according to Denny Hamlin. But it's been good for me. 26th birthday tomorrow, so should be good. But it was a pretty wild weekend at Martinsville, I have to say.
Yeah, happy birthday to you, first of all. And
Thanks.
for all hacks out there, if Alex Bowman is a hack, then there's a lot of hacks out there. I'll be a hack. I didn't buy one of his shirts. I'm not that big of an Alex Bowman person to really want to go and support, even though I know they'll probably go to his midget and sprint car team. I do get a kick out of him going and selling hack shirts, because Denny Hamlin got self-owned himself the same way as he took two in his stink. We'll get into the Martinsville, the Xfinity 500 last Sunday, which determined the final four. And, it was not that surprising what the final four ended up being, the way things came into the race. Penske Racing and Ford struck out. So the teams that finished second and third in points last year, Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano, missed the final four this year. Of course, Joey Logano, after blowing an engine at Texas, was basically screwed. Brad had speed, but didn't have enough speed to go and overcome the Toyotas and Chevys, and the fact that, of course, he's more focused on driving the six car, being a car owner next year. Ryan Blaney, unfortunate end to his season, probably a breakout year for him in his career, as he'll be changing crew chiefs to Jonathan Hassler, the 21 crew chief, who will actually be working with a race car driver and not a moron. So that'll be probably a good upgrade for him starting next year. But unfortunately for YRB, he won't be there with his BFF Clyde. Clyde, of course, trying to defend his championship, and Kyle Larson and the Redneck Jesus part 3 or whatever. He won the first two races and quietly went about his business on Sunday. We'll get into all that took place last week with all the NASCAR races. We'll get into the races. Sydney Motorsports Park. We had WEC at Bahrain as well last week, and there's some more recent news about some stupidity going on within the Supercars community, which is similar to some of the stupidity that's taking place here in America. But then when you consider where we are as a society, it's not all that surprising. But first, let's get into it. Let's get into this NASCAR weekend at Martinsville, which determined the final four. Very much charter. All you're selling is a bunch of cards. So Cheap Ganassi is happy about having the charter system. Well, when Rob Kaufman was one of your partners, are you really saying that because you believe that, or because Rob Kaufman made up that gimmick?
It was convenient for him.
Yeah, it is convenient, and it's also convenient when. And I like the picture Adam Stern used with Kyle Larson there before he could shave. That's a good picture there. That's a good look. What is it? It tells you how healthy NASCAR Cup Series is. They don't even have a sponsor for the series finale or season finale. No, that's promising. They only have a 15-minute practice, so I guess that's kind of what they're going to be going with next year. And then they'll have qualifying on Saturday night prior to, I think, the Xfinity race, the Xfinity finale. So that'll be something. Of course, Rick Hendricks stands by the sponsorship with Liberty University. The guy's a freaking felon. It's great reading Jayski. Jayski's so useful because you get all this news and all this stuff here, but you didn't start riffing. And the way I've been feeling today in the last few days, I'm liable to go off on a few tangents. 501 laps were completed on Sunday instead of 500 laps for the Xfinity 500. Alex Bowman gets his fourth victory of 2021, sixth career victory, and led only 9 laps in the race, but he led the ones that counted. Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex, and William Byron. Speaking of, bullshit university, they finished the top 5. Eric Almirola quietly went about his business all day, driving a Smithfield IHOP car and finished 6th. One of his best runs he's had since his New Hampshire win. Kurt Busch, 7th, Eric Jones in 8th, which isn't surprising considering the Petty 43 has run well at Martinsville in recent years. Bubba ran well in that car, and so Eric Jones doing it isn't that shocking either. Chris Buescher in 9th, Joey Logano 10th, Ryan Blaney 11th, Larson finished 14th. He finished 2nd in stage 1 and led 77 laps. Clyde won both stages and led 289 laps, but finished 16th. And then you have Dennis Hamlin, who was leading late. He got stage points in the second stage, led over 100 laps in a race. So basically it was Clyde, Denny Hamlin, and Kyle Larson, which at the end of the day, when you look at what this championship 4 is going to be, it's really should be between those 3 guys anyway. Kyle Busch is just there. I say that after he's backdoored both of his championships.
Martin Truex is in the final 4.
I mean, Martin Truex, sorry. And Kyle Busch ended up a point short there. Thanks for the catch. So, yeah, Martin Truex went quiet here over recent months, but was up there most of the year. And he won 4 times himself. He's got a chance. That's what matters. And I don't know how they count the seeding based on if it's based on playoff points, then Denny Hamlin is 2nd. I don't know why. I don't know why they seeded it that way. But as it stands, yeah, Larson, Elliott, Martin Truex, Denny Hamlin. That's your final 4. But there's a lot more to go within that. You talked about it, Josh, about the hack comment and all that going on, and his move on Hamlin late, which basically cost Hamlin the chance to lock himself in with the victory. He was going to make it in because he had the point cushion, but I guess let's go from there. Let's start with that. The race itself, Alex Bowman getting the victory on Sunday. A big victory because it's Martinsville for Hendrick Motorsports. They get 2 of their guys into the final 4, and they get a win anyways on top of it too with Alex Bowman.
Yeah, I mean, where Alex Bowman had it, he had the lead before he passed Denny Hamlin for a little bit, and then he actually let them by because they, leading into that incident, he had the chance to have the lead, and then after the restart, he gave Denny Hamlin the high lane. Hamlin took back the lead, and then later on, Bowman after next restart, he was able to kind of stay with Denny Hamlin and had the pace, I think, to catch onto Denny Hamlin, then just got loose going into turn 3. And I mean, even before that, he was kind of on his bumper, really using him up off of turn 4 and off of turn 2, but was still kind of giving him respect on going into, the next turns there. But then just going into turn 3 with 6 laps to go, 7 laps to go, whatever it was, just got really loose and got into Denny Hamlin and took him out there, which, I mean, I don't think it was intentional at all. Just over, trying to go for the win and getting loose there. And we've seen that
overdrove
happen.
The corner.
We've seen that happen many times in the past. So it's not really malicious. Hamlin complains about respect in the series. And I mean, Hamlin's been probably guilty of that just as Bowman's guilty of it there. So it's, I think that was just pot calling the kettle black.
Kettle black.
So, yeah.
He's run over so many people in his illustrious career. He's got 40 plus wins. Yeah, he's got Michael Jordan as his partner. FedEx wants him and keep him in the worst way. Reverend Gibbs has prayed so many Hail Marys on him for all of his issues and habits, like his drugs and fornicating with providers and taking it to in the stink, and all the other questionable behaviors that fucker has. And then he wants to go and complain about driving respect. I mean, to be fair, we were talking about qualifying in practice. Last time we had qualifying in practice was Indianapolis, I believe. And that was where Chase Briscoe had a chance to win his first race. Denny Hamlin ran him off the racetrack. Chase Briscoe, instead of trying to stay and go and door Denny Hamlin there, went and took a shortcut, which got him penalized. Denny Hamlin wants to accuse, Chase Briscoe, knowing that he had a penalty and dumping him. He didn't know there was a penalty. And unlike Denny Hamlin, I think Chase Briscoe does tell the truth. He didn't know there was a penalty. Basically, by the time he knew there was a penalty, Denny Hamlin stopped in front of him and he got sent. So I mean, yeah, sure, he wanted to win at Indy road course, but so did Chase. He wanted to win at home, and he was crying about that, and he's been crying about that for the last however many weeks. Then he got distracted. Now he's crying about Alex Bowman, and it's like This is the built-in excuse, Josh, for sure. Like he's always had this. This goes back years ago, like 2010 when he went
go back to with Brad Keselowski.
Oh God, yeah, exactly. That's exactly where I was going. I was thinking too. He's bitched and moaned about the Penske guys. He hated Joey Logano. He ran over Joey Logano when they were teammates, let alone now at Penske. And he's hated Brad Keselowski, and him and Brad and Kryle. They've all got into it together. And it's like, shut the fuck up, bro. Like, I get it. You've won 3 Daytona 500. You got all this pull and whatever. And the Jesus freak thinks you're some great thing. But you look like a horse. You're an asshole. I mean, you're an arrogant prick. At the end of the day, sold Bubba, cried about him driving you hard, threw him out of the basketball league. Now he's your race car. Now he's your driver. So, I mean, give it up, bro. Like, it's ridiculous. The way he behaves, it's getting old, like you're a guy in your 40s. Like, grow a pair, you fuck. You're trying to race for a championship. You got a pinhead that drives a 5 car, and you've got a guy in the 9 car that's a robot. Relax. I mean, Truex is sitting there kind of sitting pretty if we get into it. Want to go, and before I let you go back on, I kind of foobarred in there, Josh. I want to go and introduce a returning guest on the show. Upgraded his job. No offense to the guys that he did work for before. They do great work, but I think more people know about FanSided and NASCAR writer and fan and local boy based on my neck of the woods, Joe Passero. Welcome back to the GSP. You walked in mid-rant for me. It's been one of those weeks for me, so I'm kind of just ranting.
It was very funny when you first off, you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah,
Awesome.
You're good.
As soon as you had you messaged me on Twitter and you said I want to be on the show, I had a prior arrangement tonight. I was able to get out of that a little bit early, which I was so happy about. Not against them, but I really wanted to be here because this was such a fantastic week for storylines. I know a lot of people kind of feel iffy about what happened at the end of the race. You had Kyle Busch, you had Denny Hamlin versus Alex Bowman, Keselowski and Elliott had a run in. I mean, such a crazy week. So I'm very happy to be back with you guys. This is awesome.
Yeah, definitely, man. I appreciate you giving us the time. I know you're busy. You're doing all kinds of stuff. Got your work, got your own thing. You also have the writing going. So giving us a few minutes, a little bit of your time, it's great. I'm glad you're able to get out a little early. We got a little extra time so we can get you to kick in because we were a little delayed. We had a little, executive producer technical difficulties, which is a usual, but Josh puts up with it. He just kicks my ass in fantasy football. That's how he takes it out on me.
Yeah, that's right. And Traeger you.
Yeah. That's our friendship. He talks to me like Iron Sheik, and he treats me like I'm Brian Blair. But it's okay. I get it. It's his birthday tomorrow, so I'll let it go. It wasn't his birthday a couple weeks ago. I took the loss like a man. It'll come back to him later in the season. But anyways,
happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyways, Josh, I know you were riffing on Hamlin there and what he's doing and what he did and what he said on Sunday and kind of his history and the histrionics that come with Denny Hamlin. What else did you think about the race itself and kind of connecting to the guys that will be racing this weekend in the Final Four.
I mean, yeah, Hamlin, of course, spun out and almost lost his opportunity to get in the playoffs here for this last race. But of course, it wasn't too big of a incident there. I mean, he was still able to continue on and finish 24th. So, not the finish he wanted. Obviously, he wants to win at Martinsville and all that. So, obviously, he was pretty angry about that. And then Chase Elliott, he was up there for the first 2 stages, led a lot of laps and everything, but I think he just faded towards the end there. And I think, after, of course, he did get into it with Brad Keselowski as well. And I think that played a factor into his finish. But at that point, it was, too late for him to make a comeback and finish in the top 10 or anything like that. But he didn't really have a lot to lose.
He had already locked himself into the Final Four, so he was free rolling at that point. So then Brad Rick rolled him and sent him into the 3 and 4 fence.
Yeah, and then Larson, of course, didn't have anything to lose, and he struggles at Martinsville anyways. So that was kind of a drop race for him, I guess. He didn't really have to do anything. And he was up there initially, but then just faded outside the top 10. And then I think the guy that, besides the 3 guys, you had Martin Truex, who had to point his way in, of course, and Kyle Busch was in, but then didn't get in. He had a chance. He could have sent Alex Bowman into turn 1 on the last lap, but of course decided not to do that. So I guess for once, Kyle Busch didn't do something stupid there, which he could have, and would have been entertaining, and would have leaned into more of the theme of driver respect and driver guidelines and all that stuff, which we'll get into later. But yeah, Martin Truex able to get 1 point in to the playoffs, and he might be the sneaky threat there. He's definitely, I think, probably a dark horse favorite, probably more than what people realize.
Yeah, he won there in March, and he's been quietly good at Phoenix ever since they did the reconfigure and destroy the racetrack. Joe, I'll throw to you now. What are your thoughts? What did you write about on your site about the race in terms of these guys, the Final Four that we're going to have here on Sunday based on what happened last Sunday?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to write much about the Final Four this week. Some of the people who have been around for a little bit longer, they've definitely earned that right to cover the bigger stages. So they've been covering it. But I think, as everybody does, I do have thoughts of my own. So first off, I want to say this Final Four is going to be a very competitive Final Four. In fact, I think we could very much see what we saw last year and see the Final Four finish 1, 2, 3, 4. However, I have to say, Larson, for as great as he's been all year, I am a little concerned about him. Phoenix, just like Martinsville, not one of his best tracks. Phoenix is also not one of his best. Now, he has made improvements at all the tracks that I feel like he's commented I'm not so great at. But, it comes down to one race, and the mistakes he made at Martinsville on pit road, I think, got 2 speeding penalties. That's not going to serve him well if he cannot race through. It's not going to serve him well in the first place, but if he can't race through the pack like he couldn't this week, it's going to cost him a championship. Martin Truex, I got to say, I think is probably the favorite. You can count on him running good at these 750 horsepower tracks. Has done that all year. In fact, all 4 of his wins have come at the 750 horsepower tracks. And, I was at the race at Richmond. He did not seem like he was very happy with his car the first half of the race. And it was like all of a sudden, stage 3 comes around and he's driving through everybody. It's unbelievable what that 19 team has done on short tracks since he's moved over to Joe Gibbs in 2019. Then you have Hamlin, right? He's been with Kyle Larson in the points all year long, very consistent. I think for the longest time, had the hardest time closing out that last bit. So Hamlin's definitely going to be a contender. I would say definitely based off of his Martinsville performance, you're going to see him at the front at some point during the day. But it's a matter of, can you close it? Because we've seen before, right? 2019, it looked like he was going to win that championship. And whatever it was, a loose wheel, a bad pit stop, I don't remember that race particularly well, but took him out of the race from the lead. I have to be honest. I know that there's going to be Chase Elliott fans who are going to be mad at me. They're probably going to tweet me after I'm done making this comment. I am shocked he made the Final Four again, given the amount of mistakes that the 9 team has made in the last 9 weeks. You started the round of 16. He blew a tire. Not necessarily his fault, but he did put himself in a position where maybe he could have been less aggressive. Richmond drives off the jack, finished fourth somehow, but gave up points in stage 2, valuable points. Then you have the incident with Harvick at Bristol. I get being mad, but kind of pushed the issue a little too far. You guys were both locked in. Just rub up against him and drive off. There's no need for the extra antics. Then you have the round 12. Probably should have won Las Vegas. Did have a better car than Hamlin at the end of the race, but a strategy call, again, took him out of that contention. After that, you have Talladega, which, I don't know, Talladega's Talladega. I feel like that was a pretty clean week for them. The Roval, you have the retaliation. And while that's not necessarily their fault, I don't think anybody can say, well, we didn't see that coming, right? You had it coming to you based off of Bristol. Loose tire at Texas. Kansas, you had him run into the wall. Again, that was a fairly clean race for the 9 team. Just had that late race mishap. But again, could have won that race. They were faster than Larson at the very end. And then this week, just the car faded. And you get into the back of the pack where it's messy. I mean, look, it's great that the most popular driver is back in the Final Four contending for a second championship. But I got to say, if he wins the championship, I'll be a little shocked. Ever since the Road America win in July, which, by the way, this is the least amount of wins he's had in a season since he got his first win. I would just be really shocked if they pulled it off. And I'm not saying they can't, because clearly they proved this week at Martinsville they still have the performance in them, but they need to close it out and they need to go mistake-free during the race.
And that's definitely asking a lot, and it's great points, plenty of great stuff there, Joe and Josh. I mean, you're talking about the 300, just over a 300-mile race. It's one of the shortest races on the Cup calendar. The stages are short, relatively short. The race goes by quickly. If you make a mistake there, the pit road is goofy as hell. If you make a mistake at Phoenix, you're going to have a very hard time coming back. I don't care if they give him the illegal rocket ship that he had last year, and he came from tailback in like 50 laps. He came back from tailback. They had the comp yellow, and then by like 3/4 of the way through that stage, he was already in the top 10. I mean, or I think he was in the top 5 or some crap. I mean, that race last year, Jimmy Johnson, in my opinion, should have won that race, but the only reason he didn't is because they didn't want him to pass the Final Four. He had a car that was just as fast as the other 3 at least. I think he would have finished second in that race if NASCAR didn't do their NASCAR thing. The fact of the matter is, though, it's true, Clyde has not been the same level of driver. Yeah, of course, on the road courses, you just expect it now. It's the same way as his dad was on super speedways and the 2-mile tracks in his heyday. You just assumed that Bill Elliott was going to win on the big tracks. Well, you just assume that William Clyde Elliott II is going to win on a road course. There's death taxes, and Chase Elliott wins on road courses. That's why they have more road courses now. That's why they're going to run on street courses. That's why they're going to do all this stuff, because their most popular driver's best attribute is road racing, which nobody would have thought. I don't know where that came from. It might help that Hendrick Motorsports is able to use Gen 5 cars and use them as test cars, and sell them to people as for track days. And then I think these guys, the same way as I remember, what was it, last year when Alex Labbe, they were trying to go and nail Alex Labbe and the team with Mario Goslin at Daytona, saying he was doing illegal testing. Well, I would like to go and get somebody to go and look at Hendrick Motorsports, and you want me to go and say that Chase Elliott doesn't have an assumed name, that he hasn't been testing at VIR a lot, or Road Atlanta, or someplace. There's like, he could have went to Pikes Peak because his mom and dad have a house out in Colorado. You're telling me he doesn't have an assumed name? He doesn't go by Clyde. His friends don't call him. Aren't doing ones that call him Clyde. But that's beside the point. The fact of the matter is this: we have a Final Four. We had a lot of argy-bargy, as Calvin Fish would like to say, because it is Martinsville, where we have guys. I mean, Martin Truex as Joe said, has made his bones on the 750 tracks. I think if a Penske car had made it, Blaney aside, I think more Brad and Joey, they're more suited towards the 750 tracks anyway. So that kind of would have been a wild card. I think it's more straightforward here. Kyle Larson has all the pressure on him. He's won 9 races. I mean, we look at this championship format, the BZF format that started in 2004. I think Jimmy had 1 year where he won 10 races, probably more than a decade ago. That was like 09. It was 08, 09, somewhere around there. One of them years that he had his 5 in a row. Other than that, we haven't had somebody come into the Final Four with that many wins. Yeah, if Harvick hadn't, given it away last year, we would have had a similar scenario here this year, that last year. But the expectation and the belief of most people, I would figure the odds also kind of go this way. I mean, it probably would be a little bit lower odds than he might have had if it was a cookie cutter, but the expectation is Kyle Larson is going to close at Phoenix. And the reality is for Kyle Larson, yes, he has become more of a closer here in this post, hard R era. He's been able to win at a very high rate. He finally got his Chili Bowl. He finally got the Knoxville Nationals. He's won I think he won the King's Royal, whatever. It's like, as long as it's in a dirt car, it's almost a guarantee. But this is a different animal here. And you've got Joe Gibbs putting all their eggs in the 19 and the 11. Denny Hamlin, all his whining and moaning. He wants to get off the narrative that he's a choker in these big spots. Martin Truex is free rolling. If there's one person that I think that's in this that's free rolling, nobody's giving him any attention. And that's scary considering what Martin Truex has done over the past 5 years of his career. And considering his pre-cup career when he was able to win championships with consistency and wins, doing, the old school method, but he's figured out how to do this. And him and James Small, you're going to give them a practice too. You're going to give all these guys practice. And that might be the thing that helps Kyle Larson. But to me, I think it comes back to previous record, recent history. It would be shocking if Clyde goes and repeats, but it's not out of the realm. He had a car that was a rocket. That's one of the fastest cars I've ever seen at Phoenix ever. That wasn't an Indy car. Davey Allison had a car like that back in 91, but Ernie had a car like that in 93. He couldn't beat Mark Martin. That car that he had last year at Phoenix could have lapped the field if they had like 450 laps or something. Like, it was that fast. I figure Gustafson and him, they put everything together in a spot, pit road position, and that's one thing that's different. I guess this is where we'll go with this piece, because we'll get into more details. We have to get into Xfinity and the trucks too, but it's less of an issue. How much, Josh, I'm going to go with you first. How much do you feel this, having practiced for the first time since Indy, having a qualifying session for the first time since Indy, is going to dictate things? I mean, I think the pit road position, I think they've been given the first 4 pit stalls. I think that's just, or first 4 picks. I don't know if anything has come out that's stated otherwise, or if it's going to be dictated based on qualifying. How much do you think that those 2 pieces that haven't been there for most of the year are going to affect each of the final 4?
Well, I think for Larson, it's going to give him an opportunity to get extra reps in for this track at Phoenix. I mean, he's had plenty of top 10s in the last couple of years that he's raced at Phoenix. He had a chance in 2017 to win late. Didn't get that to happen. But I would say he's probably better than what some people realize at Phoenix. I know Joe said earlier that it's not one of his best tracks. I mean, I wouldn't say it is his best track or it's not his best track, but he's been able to do fairly well in the last couple of years that he's raced there. But it's going to give him an opportunity to at least have a baseline for his car. And, he's been the best driver this season. So he'll have opportunity for him to continue to improve his car through practice. And I think one thing to factor is like Joe Gibbs has been better on 750 tracks. Hendrick hasn't been quite good on the 750 tracks. They've been better on the higher speed tracks like Nashville and Bristol. But I mean, on 750, they haven't been good at like Martinsville or Phoenix, like the Gibbs cars have. And I think it's going to give them an opportunity, especially the 5 and the 9 as well, to have a chance to measure up themselves in practice on lap times, on speed, compared to the 11 and the 19. So I think that's going to be one thing to consider. And then I think for Joe Gibbs, especially with Truex, they're probably going to use the same car that they used back when they won in March at Phoenix, because they're coming in as the defending winner from the previous Phoenix race, and I think that gives the 19 a huge advantage going into this race. They know that they can drive well at these tracks, so they're going to be able to continue to build on what they had last time. So I see the 19 probably being the favorite here, just because their success that they've had, and then it's also going to give Hamlin a chance to improve his, I guess, record at Phoenix. But I think qualifying as well, we're going to see who can actually qualify here at this track. Larson, he's got a lot of talent, and I mean, he's maybe not the best qualifier, but certainly he could, with the way he's able to drive, could qualify up in the top 5. I think Truex is probably going to have a pole or close to pole speed. Hamlin, I'm not sure. I mean, I think Chase Elliott's a pretty good qualifier, so I could see him qualifying pretty easily into the top 10. But it's all just going to give them a chance to prepare for this race like they haven't been able to. So starting it's going to affect the beginning of the race as well, because I think the beginning of a lot of these races, these cars have been able to have a chance to settle in, especially knowing that they have that competition caution to start the race. But now that they have practice, now they're going to know what their cars are going to be like going into the race once they start. So there's not going to be like a concern of how the handling is going to be before they hop into the race car and start the race. Now they'll have at least an idea of what it's going to feel like, and the handling, what they're struggling with that weekend, what they might need to improve on during the race before it started, which we haven't had this season. So that's going to be interesting. But I will say during the race, it's going to be interesting for Larson, because he's been the most successful driver this season, but there's been a couple of times this year where he choked late. I mean, you look at Atlanta, led most of the laps of that race, but then didn't have the best handling car at the end, gave it up to Ryan Blaney. Kansas had a chance to beat Denny Hamlin in that one back in the spring, but then didn't win that race. And then I think, he tried to pass on the last restart, but then ended up getting into the wall. And then he was in 24th, I think, at the end of that race. So there's a couple of races that he didn't close where he probably should have. So it's going to be interesting if it comes down to late race situation and he has to close in, that high pressure situation, which we haven't really seen Larson or even Elliott in, with those Hendrick cars. So I think that's going to be an interesting aspect to look at too.
And I mean, I kind of started on it. Josh mentioned it, Joe. How much because this is, I mean, most motorsport series outside of NASCAR, even during the peak, and I mean, we're still in this pandemic, no matter what certain people want to think. Most motorsport series have gone back more or less to their normal setup with practice, qualifying, and the like. NASCAR, through whatever gimmick they want to come up with, whether it's cost savings with an air quote, or whatever, wanting to keep the guys that are running well up front, not being in the back unless they failed inspection, which is its own separate discussion, the way they do fines and penalties and all of that. We might get into that in a few moments, but how much do you think it plays when it comes to this? Or is there a possibility that one of these guys goes and screws up a lap, and puts themselves tailback, and it becomes kind of an intriguing deal? Kyle Larson, I know he can put a fast lap down. He's done it in a dirt car, but putting a fast lap down when it counts in a cup car, he's a good qualifier, not a great qualifier. I don't think any of these guys are considered like amazing qualifiers. you have the likes of William Byron, who's kind of made his name recently as a guy who puts down good laps. You have Kyle Busch, who has nothing to lose. You have Penske guys who are free rolling here. SHR basically been a disaster most of the year. Kevin Harvick wants to actually get a win. It would be weird for him not to get a win. Be the first time since like the early 2000s or something that he hadn't won a race, I think. So that would be something. Of course, even Briscoe, who's going to win the Rookie of the Year, would want to finish out his year well. Last time they had qualifying the outside pole. Eric Almirola does really well on these flat tracks. So there's a lot of players here that could actually go and kind of mess with this Final Four. But this kind of qualifying and practice setup is what NASCAR is going to look like. Cup racing next year with this new car, which we'll discuss here in a few minutes. This is what practice and qualifying is going to look like. But in this spot, determining a championship after most of the year not having any of this, how do you feel is going to affect these guys, or is it an advantage for any of these guys?
I don't necessarily know that I would say that there is an advantage for anybody, that there is practice, particularly pertaining to the Final Four. I think for people outside of the Final Four, having practice to look at where those four guys are to see what they can do to improve, that's advantageous to them. As far as the Final Four goes, they're in the Final Four for a reason. I know I just kind of spewed out every reason Chase Elliott shouldn't be in the Final Four, but the fact of the matter is they have speed each and every week, just like all of the other guys in the Final Four. I thought, though, in particular to qualifying, Josh, you had said something that just triggered my mind. This is the first time in a really long time that we're having qualifying. And traditionally, what has happened in qualifying over the past few years, Stewart-Haas cars are very fast, trimmed out for speed, great on pole day, and great if you can keep the car out front. Once they lose the front of the pack on race day, that's kind of just story's over for them. Hendrick cars, not trimmed out as good. And I agree. I think out of the four, Josh, you made a remark where Chase is a really good qualifier. I would say out of the four, he's probably the best in qualifying. The Hendrick cars not always traditionally trimmed out the same way that the Haas cars are. That way they do carry over in race day a little bit better. But the Gibbs cars, and I specifically remember this from the start of last year, the end of 2019, not good in qualifying because they set the cars up for grip, not speed. But it makes a big difference on race day. That's why you had 2019, all the Gibbs cars were doing very well. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the two Gibbs cars that are in the Final Four do this approach. Do they feel confident enough in this approach where they can start a little bit farther back and still be able to manage the race? Because, you're going to have stage 1 and 2 with the Hendrick cars presumably up front if they do continue to qualify as well. There's also the opposite side of the token. If Hendrick says, man, the Gibbs cars the last few times we've done qualifying have been good on race day, do they maybe switch it up where they set up those two cars, the 5 and the 9, with a lot of grip, give up some of that position, that starting position, but probably have a better car over the long run in the race. Another element that can really throw off not only the race and qualifying practice as well is that they're not using PJ1 this weekend. They are using the tire resin that was used earlier in the year. I believe it was at New Hampshire. But this track is Nashville. Oh, yeah, maybe it was. You're right. Maybe it was either Nashville. It could have been Michigan too. Michigan had a compound down. But this is really interesting. Phoenix has never had, I don't believe, anything other than PJ1 on the track. So having this tire resin, it's going to react differently. You never know. Maybe they don't work so much temperature into it, which allows cars to go up there really early in the race, but then it falls off at the end of the race, right? This is going to be a very dynamic race. But two, what does it do in qualifying? Does somebody go up there and try it out and either be a hero or a zero? Do one of the four try it in practice, possibly wreck, and then you have a whole nother problem? So adding qualifying, I'm very happy, by the way, to see qualifying in practice back. I'm so happy to see it back. But you're absolutely right. There's so many elements that this adds in that you can really make or break your weekend before the race even starts. So it'll be interesting. It'll definitely be for sure interesting to see. And I'm going to be honest. I expect one of the final four to win. I don't really care about the other 36, 35, 34 cars. But as far as the final four goes, I'm very intrigued to see how they play not only their race strategy, their weekend strategy.
And that's something that we've been missing all year and for the last couple of years. And as a purist, as a longtime fan, going way back when, and considering watching other motorsports, since we cover all different types of motorsports here on the show, the fact that NASCAR hasn't had practice and qualifying has been irritating to me. I know it's been irritating to Kyle Busch. I think his statistics might look just a little bit different. It's proof positive when he gets to drive another vehicle, whether it's his own truck, whether it's the 54, he gets practice, he runs better. That's just history. But then when you're as good as Kyle Busch, and you have an ego as big as Kyle Busch and you look like a mosquito, you're going to be able to pull it through more times than not. But in recent years, since the second horseshoe he got shoved up his butt with the title, it's been kind of difficult for him. But we will see what goes on practice and qualifying. We're going to get into some other topics when it comes to in regards to next year and Cup Series and in general shortly. Let's get into Xfinity and trucks though. Do it across the board here. The Xfinity finale this weekend, we 200 miler on Saturday evening, so that'll be Saturday night race at Phoenix. They've been running it during the day for many years, so now they're putting it as a night race, so that's cool. It's of course an even shorter race coming up this weekend. Leading into that though, Noah Gragson gets himself in to the final four with a victory. Shotguns a beer, has, trades numbers with some MILF or something, whatever he does. Whatever. Austin Cindric finished second. Daniel Hemrick, I don't know. I've been a Daniel Hemrick fan for years. Not just because of his driving ability, but because he's got a beautiful wife that can drive a race car too. But I don't know how or when he's ever going to win a race. It might just end up being Daytona next year, because I don't think it's going to be this coming Saturday. He had a chance to win this race though. Lane choice decisions late were questionable. But we'll see. We'll see what the crew thinks here. They were the top three. They all will be in the final four. AJ Allmendinger will also be in the final four. And you had Sam Mayer, who got into stuff, which, it's Sam Mayer. And Justin Allgaier finished fifth. So the junior motorsports crew had three of the top five. Bruckshot Jones finished sixth. Alex Labay, got him Alex Labay mentions here on the program today. And we're not even talking about the Canadian, whatever, the CASCAR, Canadian Tire, whatever the hell they call the Canadian NASCAR series now, the former champion there. He finished eighth. Jeremy Clements ninth, and Herbst, wow, he finished 10th. That's something. I'm looking here. Myatt Snyder, who still has a job, got a new job next year because of RCR, finished 13th. I guess he's related. Myatt Snyder must be related to Richard Childress or something, because he still has a job. JJ Ailey got stage points. Brett Moffitt and his stupidity got stage points. Harrison Burton got stage points in the finished second in stage 2, finished 20th, got damage, which knocked him out of contention to make the final four. Ty Gibbs got spun out and finished 27th. Josh Berry, who won earlier this year at Martinsville in the 8 car, was driving the 31 car this week, had a good piece at times. but finished 28th. Looking through some of the other guys, Ryan Sieg actually got stage points. Jeb Burton had stage points, got wrecked, and Michael Annette. So we'll get into this final four here. Greg Sin, defending series champion Austin Cindric, Daniel Hemrick. It's his third Final Four since this format has come along. And of course, AJ Allmendinger. The battle, Allmendinger and Cindric have been the two best drivers this year. I'll send it to you first, Joe. You have Gregson with the momentum here coming in with the win, but he is an interesting character, Noah Gregson. And then you have Hemrick, who, Daniel Hemrick, it's the driving force. When is he going to win a race? Is he going to pull one out of his butt on Saturday and just go and take the soul of everybody else? I have a hard time believing it. I want to see it happen. It would be hilarious. It would kind of show the championship format is kind of farcical, as Al Michaels would say. We have this Final Four, two of the best drivers all year, and then two guys that on and off have been there. More Hemrick through most of the season, and Gregson, for what he is flashy. He has a following. I think his fans, of course, want to see him win. There's a segment of the population that like this sport that seem to like him. There's just as many people in this sport that are fans that would like to see him hit the wall 10 laps into a race. I'm one of those people, and I really don't care if people are going to be mad about it because he's a douche. But I'll let you go, Joe, and give your analysis on the race on Saturday and initial thoughts on this coming Saturday's Final Four and what we should expect.
Yeah. So first off, you have to, even if you don't like him, you like him, you don't like him, you have to appreciate the character that Noah Gragson is, the personality that he has. Of course, it's going to rub some people the wrong way, but what better way to celebrate a victory than shotgun beer with, 100,000 of your closest friends, or however many people that Martinsville sits. So, very similarly to how I talked about, you had Larson and Hamlin very much neck and neck a lot of the year. I think that's the same dynamic that Allmendinger and Cindric have had in Xfinity. The difference with these two compared to the other pair, they have been much closer in competition than the 5 and the 11, right? The 5 kind of hit his stride in the summer. The 11 started to come back. They were always even in points. These two have always been pretty even in points, but because they run, 2-3 spots apart the whole season in every track, in every stage, in every finish. So these two, to me, this is a much more even match. If you just want to talk about the two cars that dominated the season between the 16 and the 22. Now, I have found as of late, the 16 will start the race pretty strong and fade in the middle. And it's kind of 50-50 what happens there at the end. Is he going to get past 5th spot? Now, I don't want that. I don't want to knock on them because they still run top 5 most of those races. But, it's concerning if I'm Kaulig racing, if I'm the 16 team, right? I need to be able to bounce back if I fade in that second stage. With this being as short of a race as it is, you really have to hope that you don't fade at all. The 22, I think, has been a little bit more solid, especially through this last round of the playoffs that we saw. Was in contention, right there at the very end at Martinsville. So, and being the defending champion, he knows how to deal with this pressure. He's been in this spot before. This is nothing new to him, which I think to him is a huge advantage as well. And then you have the 2 who, they got in, and I don't mean that in a bad way, right? Because Hemrick has been strong a lot of the season, has won a lot of stages, but he just can't close. And sometimes it's not his fault. Sometimes it's just, the caution comes out and something crazy happens to him, right? He's been caught up in plenty of messes that were not his. He was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And, as far as Gregson goes, the regular season for him was pretty bad. Got some redemption there at the end, one at Darlington and one at Richmond. But, had it not been for those 2 wins, he was sort of just squeaking on by into the playoffs, right? But a lot of people don't remember that, at that point in the season when he did win at Darlington, I think he was 10th or 11th or 12th in points, right? Like on the bubble of not even being in the playoff picture, which I think to a lot of people was kind of shocking. To me, it was shocking. I expected that team would have a win at that point. And even if they didn't, that they would have more points. So he's definitely been stronger throughout the playoffs. But like Hemrick, he too has been in a few incidents. In fact, the two of them tangled, the 18 and the 9, just multiple a few weeks ago at Kansas. Yeah. There was another race those two got into it. I think that was Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta.
Yeah. And that too, I have absolutely no doubt that somebody's willing to wreck somebody else for this championship. I kind of don't like that, I'll be honest, because I like clean and hard racing over, I'm just going to dump this guy and be on my way. That kind of takes a little bit of excitement out of it. But, if it comes down to the 9 and the 18, one of them will wreck the other if they're within distance of doing it. If it comes down to the 16 and the 22, I don't know that they'll wreck each other. They'll definitely put a fender to a door if they want to, but I don't know that would be an intentional wreck waiting to happen. Nonetheless, again, very interesting Final Four. Can definitely see the 16 and the 22 winning the championship. Again, both of them have just been so good all year. The 9, I can't say I would be shocked. I think I would be more shocked in that sense just because the 16 and the 22 didn't win it rather than the 9 winning it. The 18, my God, I was talking to a friend about Hemrick the other night, and we were talking about how insane if he would win his first race in the same race and win the championship. I got to be honest, I can't see it happening. I can't see him winning a race. And it just, I think, has to do with the fact that he's had no luck. He's blown a few races this year alone, and he's in the best equipment that there is in the field. He's in Joe Gibbs racing equipment. If you can't win in Joe Gibbs equipment, I don't know if you can win, right? You're talking about waiting for that first win for him. When will he win? I've dropped the when. Will he win is my question. But I don't think we need a reminder that a few years ago in trucks, we did have a champion who went winless, Matt Crafton. So it's not completely out of the picture that this guy does not win the race and still wins championship.
And based on this format, it also kind of plays into where it could happen, if a bad pit stop for Cindric or Allmendinger, for as talented as he has been for as long as he's been around in motorsport, which is 15, 17 years, both in open wheel and in NASCAR, he's liable to make mistakes in big spots. It used to be the thing in Cup when they'd always say, oh, he's the favorite at the road courses, and the cartoon anvil would drop on his head. He's already like 4 feet tall, but then he'd become like 3'8". At Sears Point, where he didn't stall the car like Marcus Ambrose did, which was an epic fail. But he's had bad pit stops. He choked like when Tony won his last race. It's there, but the Colleague deal, Chris Rice, that whole group, there's a difference there, and of course AJ's much different space in his life. Is smoking. I mean, he had a smoking hot wife before, but now his current wife's a pageant queen and all this stuff, and he's really loose and feeling good about life. So that's one thing. You have Cindric, who's free rolling. He's driving the 2-car next year. No matter what happens, he's had a solid year as in a defense of his championship. I figure he would be the favorite going in, but who knows? I think it's a toss between those two guys, the way they've run all year. If the 9 and the 18 get into play, I mean, to be fair, before I throw to you, Josh, the Gibbs cars in recent years at Phoenix have been very good. Bruckshot Jones, for his lack of talent, has won there multiple times. Kyle Busch, when he drives there, albeit it's Kyle Busch, I think you could put him in a wheelbarrow and he could win at Phoenix. But anytime he jumps in an Xfinity car, basically he wins. One of those times he didn't was Bruckshot last year. You've had other guys run well there. You got Ty Gibbs, he's going to be in one of the cars, the 54, as a precursor to his likely Final Four appearance next year. So, he's going to be up there. So that could kind of be a dynamic shift there. There's a couple players, I think, these guys that are not, unlike the Cup Series where there's going to be like this APB, do not get in the way of the Final Four. It doesn't really work as well in the Xfinity and the trucks because the lack of respect is there where they don't really care. Ty Gibbs has run over anybody and everybody, hurt Tim Richmond in the ARCA series, or no, that was the other guy that drives for Kyle Busch as well, Corey Haim. But they ran over everybody. He went full, but him and Corey Haim went like full Mike Wallace on Shauna Robinson at Atlanta 94 during the ARCA season this year. It was like epically bad. We're talking about respect. And it could happen on Saturday where Ty Gibbs loses his mind or Sam Ware loses his mind, and it could affect this championship. They cut checks. Joe Gibbs will pray to Jesus to go and save him, and he'll call Joel Osteen or whoever other televangelist that they're all hooked up with. But you can't come to Jesus quick enough if you've wrecked that many people over your whole entire time, Josh. But when you talk about there's going to be qualifying, whatever it looks like, it seems like, because if they have 42 for 40, then that means John Hunter is going to be okay. So John Hunter is going to be in the race, so that's promising. Might be doing it after winning a Truck Series championship. We'll get into that. Says Sheldon Creed is a late entry for BJ McLeod. So that's interesting. As a precursor to him running full-time for RCR next year in the Whelen Engineering number 2. Trying to look at some of these other guys that are here. Parsons and Vargas, Matt Mill. There are a lot of the BJ McLeod people changing the number, all that. Mike Lynette's last start. God bless him. Do us all a favor, sponsor one of the guys that are at Junior Motorsports, Josh Berry, and make sure that pilot Flying J and whatever gets more promotion than you ever had in your decades of mediocrity. As we have, Mayer. Looking at Bailey Curry. Joe Graff is driving the 17 because the 07 will be driven by J.J. Ailey, of course, is from Arizona. Is it Blaine Perkins, Lupton, Sage Karam. All right, Sage Karam will be in the 31 car. And trying to look over here, some of these other people. Yeah, I think John Hunter. Oh, so there's no Ty Gibbs. So
John Hunter's in the 54.
All right, so John Hunter might just go win the race. So that'll be fun. That'll make it funny because they're like, oh man, John Hunter, he won the Truck Series championship. I'm already giving away who I think is going to win on Friday night, but I think he's going to get a double and make it not as dramatic. But I think in the end, though, we've been talking about Cindric and Allmendinger all year or most of this year. But I guess, and I think it's going to come down to one of those two. Joe talked about it. When it comes to this, though, there is a chance. It's not out of the realm as much as it may be in the Cup side. It isn't as much out of the realm in my feeling, but I don't know about your thinking, Josh, that Daniel Hemrick can go and pull the Hail Mary and win, or Gagson can do 2 in a row and do what any other driver that's been in the 9 cars since 9 cars existed has done, which is win a lot and win championships, except him. Well, he could make up for that in a matter of 2 weeks, or in the case of Joe, what we led up to, basically in the playoff. He made up just before the playoff, he made up for basically being a waste of a seat. And in the last 12 weeks, he might actually make himself a legitimate race car driver, which would make so many people happy and do so much for our society.
Yeah, I think with Noah Gragson, it's definitely possible for the 9 car to go out and win this race. They're going to have practice as well, so they're going to have a chance to get the car dialed in and be able to figure out what they need to get it working on Saturday. But I think Gragson, if he's going to win, it's probably going to come in a late race scenario where they either come out up front or in the lead on pit road or something, and he's going to be able to make something happen on the restart and get really aggressive, because that's kind of his style. And possibly maybe he might end up being the guy that wrecks somebody for the championship. It's may not be intentional, but he's not really going to care that much about it. That's his style, to go out and be as aggressive as he can, and go out and win races, and of course win the championship. So that's what you have to look out for with Noah Gragson. I think Daniel Hemrick, if he's going to win, it's probably going to come as a long run car. Like if they're able to get a long green flag run to the finish, which probably won't happen because it's the championship race, and it's also in the Xfinity series in the championship race. So that's all going to be a factor with the type of quality of the field, and also the timing of the cautions. But I feel like his style is probably going to be more of the type to win over, or have good long run speed and be able to take the lead and run away with it for the end of the race. I mean, you saw that at Martinsville. He had the best car at the end before the last couple of cautions, had the lead, but then lost it after the last set of restarts there. So if he has a good car like that, where he can make up time during green flag runs, definitely can see Hamrick up there. But I think really the focus, as we've been saying, is on AJ Allmendinger. It's on Austin Cindric. I mean, these guys have been trading wins all year. I do think if it comes down to a late race scenario, which probably will, like I just said, I would probably give the nod to Cindric, because with Allmendinger, I mean, there's been times in his career where he's hasn't been on that end and he's choked. But I mean, I think he has had a bit of a mindset change in the last couple of years that he's competed in Xfinity, but it's still there with the history that he's had. So I might go with Cindric there, but I think, the respect level, I mean, consider some of the drivers in this series, how they've raced, I mean, including Gregson. It's possible that we have a really weird situation, where the leader gets wrecked, or, one of the top contenders in the race gets in an accident late and, causes all sorts of chaos, and we get a whole bunch of restarts to end the Xfinity season. I think, also with guys like Justin Allgaier, guys like John Hunter, who have really good cars, they could also be foils for the top four, because the 54, I mean, you're going to pick him to probably win this race, and it's very likely. I mean, because the 54, when John Hunter drove last time at Texas, I mean, it's a 1.5 mile track, but still was better than everybody else. He's better than Daniel Hemrick, who probably could have won that race again in another caution, another restart, and that he wasn't able to convert that one into win. So I think the 54 has a really good chance at winning as well. The 7, Justin Allgaier has been really good at Phoenix over the last couple of years, and he could end up being in that situation where he's a leader late race scenario, and it's going to come down to if he's going to let the championship 4 settle it from themselves, or he goes out and tries to get a win for himself and end the season on a high note, to kind of mitigate the disappointment of not being in the championship 4. So a lot of scenarios that could play out here in the series. I mean, I think in Cup, kind of all expect the Final 4 to be up there the entire race. But I think, here with the Xfinity, definitely a chance that, one of the outsiders spoils the race, or one of the Final 4, somebody else in the outsiders have a chance to get aggressive or ruin the race for, one of those guys.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some nonsense that happens on Saturday evening with the Xfinity race. But to be fair, if it is in the 22 or the 16, it'll be somewhat of a surprise. No matter what Gibbs has done there in recent history, or Gregson and his lovely fan base. Going into the trucks, this past weekend, they ran the United Reynolds 200, which was Austin Hill got to announce his deal moving to the Xfinity Series full time with RCR as a teammate to Sheldon Creed, but Zane Smith ended up coming through and getting the dub, pissing off Matt Crafton and Junior Joyner in the process. Austin Hill finished second in the sponsors race. Tanner Gray finished third, basically the best run he's had all year. Probably should go back to pro stock. it would be better for him. Chandler Smith finished 4th, Matt Crafton 5th, Parker Kligerman. It'll be something he'll actually get to qualify this weekend. It'll be something. He finished 6th after starting 30th. Ben Rhodes 7th, Taylor Gray 8th. So the two Gray brothers actually finished in the top 10. DGR gets 2 top 10 finishers. Sheldon Creed, the defending series champion, even though he finished 9th, he will not have the opportunity to defend his championship, falling 4 points short of the cut line, which between Matt Crafton, John Hunter, and who are tied. John Hunter got into issues, got hooked by noted dingbat Austin Wayne Self, and getting right-reared is definitely no bueno, but in current day NASCAR, depending on your creed or whatever, your whatever the color of your skin, it's okay if they right-rear you. Austin Wayne Self, who's been suspended for drugs, has been suspended for just being who he is, being an idiot. And but he right-rears the guy who is the favorite to win this championship. Nothing happens. I don't know how that's possible. It's pathetic. I mean, Kyle Busch went and used the R word, and they're saying he needs sensitivity training. I mean, he needs more sensitivity training. In the case of Austin Wayne himself, he needs an eye test and a driver's test, because if it wasn't for his mom and dad, he probably wouldn't have any business driving a race car. The guy that he denigrated drove his truck and did better than him, but he's still in the truck because the truck series is dying. John Hunter almost missed the Final Four, which would have made it a farce. The defending series champion missing the championship four is kind of a farce, but that was more akin to a deal that Zane Smith hit everything but the lottery. Crafton got lucky there. I'll send it to you, Josh, first. I mean, Zane Smith backdooring his way into the Final Four after a generally nondescript year for him. Last year was a much better season. This year he's not really followed it up very well. And when you consider that Sheldon Creed has done all right most of the year, I mean, they've had Enfinger. I think they've had other guys come in and do something. It's been a generally disappointing season for GMS. That now they're not even going to be able. They might be able to get a championship with Zane Smith, which would be shocking. But I have a hard time believing that's going to happen, even with what he did Saturday afternoon at Martinsville. Because I think it'll be between the two Toyota drivers of John Hunter Nemechek and Ben Rhodes.
Yeah, I think for the truck series for Zane Smith, he's been basically listless all year. I mean, he's had the same amount of top tens as he had in 2020 when he had 13 between both of the seasons so far. But this year, he's just been kind of out of the running for the most part with the way he's run so far this year. Just hasn't had the type of pace that he's had last year. And like you said, overall, GMS doesn't really have the pace that they had a year ago. I mean, Sheldon Creed also drives for GMS, and he wasn't really all that great up until the playoffs, and then had a mostly great playoffs for him, but then just didn't make it into the Final Four. And that was, because kind of how that finished. And then his teammate, Zane Smith, bumped him out there. So that's kind of a guy that we would have thought would have contended for this Final Four that isn't in there. But yeah, Zane Smith could be a surprise winner if GMS is able to give him a good piece to compete with John Hunter Nemechek there. I think, of course, John Hunter Nemechek's the favorite. The four car has been very dominant the entire year. But I mean, there have been moments where he wasn't as great and where he probably needed to be good. But I think he's the leading favorite. Ben Rhodes, after Daytona, he won the first race, won at Daytona Road Course, and then we haven't really heard from him very much the rest of the year. He's quietly gone about his business throughout the entire truck seasons, managed to make it into the Final Four now. So he could be a threat, but we haven't really seen a whole lot of him since Daytona at the very beginning of the year. And I'm just not sure what the pace is going to be for him compared to John Hunter Nemechek. So I think and then of course we have Matt Crafton, who always the wily vet, but he just, again, compared to the 4-car, hasn't had a whole lot of speed to, give him a chance to win the race. And I think it's going to, come down to the late race restart. I mean, it's going to be the theme across all 3 series here with how the championship is decided. And I think as long as John Hunter Nemechek keeps it up front, has a clean race, and he's able to, have good strategy, I think he's probably going to end up being the winner here for this Truck Series championship.
And John Hunter, of course, is signed back for next year to drive this 4 truck, and we don't know who else will be there, whether it'll be Chandler Smith, whether it'll be Corey Heim or somebody else for Kyle Busch Motorsports. I think the end game for John Hunter is getting in a 2311 Cup car. I think he wants to get a second stab at it in top equipment when you consider that the 45 is coming out next year with Kurt Busch, and we don't know how long Kurt has in his career. We don't know what his involvement may be with that organization. He's, dovetailing. He's doing TV stuff right now with FS1 for the trucks, to be literally the only person that has a clue on that broadcast. It seems like he wants to have involvement, considering he sees Hamlin. Brad now is going to be a part owner of what has been Roush Racing. At one point, you have Gordon is running Hendrick Motorsports. You have Smoke owns his own team. There's a lot of people out there, younger type owners. Matt Collig, which we're going to talk about here in a few moments' time. One of the guys that's coming into this Cup Series. But honestly, Joe, it would be a disappointment after what John Hunter has done this year and what John Hunter has done in general in his Truck Series career. He's proven he has talent. He's proven he's very aggressive, probably to a fault, more than his father was. But in this spot here, he said it's about winning. He came back to the trucks because he wanted to win. Kyle Busch didn't hire him to finish second. He needs to win this deal. I mean, in the end, if he doesn't win this deal and, it's some sort of Hail Mary thing, something weird happens, which is kind of what happened last year in the finale. Former guest of the show, Dawson Cram, had a spin late, and that kind of affected the final result. But when you consider it allowed Sheldon Creed to become a champion, and his teammate basically napalmed himself in his post-race interview and sent himself down into dumb fuck purgatory, it's fine. I think that was just karma catching up to him there. But in this spot, John Hunter Nemechek not coming through would be akin to, Denny Hamlin level, choking away a championship here, I think, because John Hunter has been on a different level all year. If you're going to say who's the guy, like if it is him or Kyle Larson, there's going to be way more attention on Kyle Larson. If he doesn't close the deal, it'd be really bad. But honestly, John Hunter, if he doesn't close this deal, you're going to have to answer that all through the offseason, leading into next year, all through the regular season, even through the playoff. This is going to carry for a long time because Toyota's putting a lot on John Hunter to be one of their guys for their future, because Toyota, as it stands right now, is a much older organization without a lot of youth that seems ready. Ty Gibbs, for whatever he is going to be there. But outside of that, who else is in a Toyota that you think is going to be there? John Hunter is that guy. He needs to close the deal.
Yeah, you're right. And what you said about Kyle Busch, he doesn't hire anybody to finish second. You go work for Kyle Busch, that's basically the same thing as signing on with Gibbs or Hendrick in Cup. You don't go there because you're not talented. You don't go there to finish second. You go there to win. You win races and you win championships. And John Hunter has brought back some life to that organization. They were really struggling the past few years. I don't remember which driver it was who left. I want to say maybe it was Byron, but I feel like that was too long ago. Where after that driver left, the organization really started to struggle. And you have these younger guys who are in these cars like Chandler Smith, who they aren't blossoming. They aren't coming about. And maybe it's just they're not blossoming as fast as other drivers have, or whatever it might be.
Like
But
Todd Gilliland.
yeah, Todd Gilliland, another great example. So John Hunter is the favorite to win. I mean, Cup, we've said it's a little bit, it's going to be disputed, maybe based off of preference or whatever. Xfinity, I don't even think you can declare a favorite. This series is very different. John Hunter has been the class of the field all year long. He constantly, at least with the regulars, and even when Kyle Busch, let's remember, hopped into a truck a few weeks and John Hunter still came out victorious. John Hunter has put himself so far ahead of all of the rest of the truck regulars this season, no matter what situation he's in. He has constantly managed to first off be at the front. And even when he has an issue, he finds his way back there. So that to me is just it's just a telltale sign. He's going to have success, whether it's in Xfinity or Cup or trucks, wherever he goes in the future, he will be successful. But as far as the more short term, if he doesn't win this championship, I'll be shocked. Something is gonna have to take him out, or somebody possibly. If Austin Wayne self decides he wants to go round 2. It's gonna take something for this 4 team to lose this championship. I think what Josh was saying about the other 3 is really head on. I mean, Ben Rhodes came out and the season, he exploded, wins in the first 2 races, and the fashion that he did it in was fantastic. But after that, he's sort of fallen off. And ever since John Hunter took the points lead, maybe 4 or 5 races into the season, we haven't heard much about Ben Rhodes as far as competing for wins. He's still been at the front of the field, top 5, maybe back half of the top 10. But we always still see that 99 truck. Crafton, you see him because the truck is really bright, consistent, and that's always been his thing. He's always run consistent. But this year just hasn't had the pace for wins, hasn't had the pace really to go out and beat that Ford truck, in a one-on-one type situation. And then Zane Smith, great for him that he won Martinsville. Frankly, I don't see him winning this championship. I would be shocked if he won this championship. Really has not been good all year. Has run into many, many, many issues. I thought he was going to get eliminated in the first round. Had a good first round, made it out, and survived this round solely on that win. I don't even know how many points he was back. All I know is he was in a must-win going into the race, and that was going to be either a 0 or a hero moment. Ended up being the hero when the 2 cars next to him wrecked. I just, you could tell he is going to be around in some capacity, whether that's he's going to be around still in the trucks, maybe he moves into Xfinity in the near future. But he hasn't been successful this season for whatever reason. All of GMS really has struggled this season, especially when you look at it last year and you see the amazing runs that Creed and even that Zane Smith had in some of those races. But I think the 4 truck has to be the undisputed favorite moving into the championship race. And if he doesn't win, it's probably not because the 4 team did something, and it's probably not because the driver of the 4 made a mistake. It would have to be something really severe. And I have even full confidence that the 4 would, if something happened, if that truck was repairable, that they would still be competitive.
Yeah, there's very few people that are out there in the truck series as of now that I would venture to believe could go and make much of a dent on a possible John Hunter Nemechek championship to join his father as a NASCAR champion. I'm trying to think, other than the Earnhardts and the Elliots, they're the only ones that have done it as family in NASCAR's 3 major series off the top of my head. I mean, of course, the Labonte brothers have done it. So it would be cool to see John Hunter, his dad Joe, won the 1992 Busch Series championship. So for a lot of people that are listening to this show that probably don't even know, they just know him as Front Row Joe. some of the battles that he got in with the likes of Kevin Harvick and whatever. They probably remember him winning 2004. Maybe they remember him winning 2004 at Kansas, beating Ricky Rudd in the Wood Brothers car. Or he won in the Army car, beating the Wood Brothers car and Ricky Rudd. But yeah, Joe Nemechek was a guy. He had a mustache too back then and a mullet. So, and I had to promote that since my Halloween costume involved a Rico Abreu mullet hat, both at work and at the bowling alley on Monday. It was a big hit. We'll go from mullets, bringing it old school, to the new school. And the two things, we'll start with this I don't want to keep you, Joe, for any longer than you. I don't know how long you have, but I figure
all night.
Okay, well, that's good for me. I'm off tomorrow. I know Josh has work. I figure you have work too. Yeah. So we still have some other stuff we have to discuss outside of NASCAR, but I figure two pieces here. This driving standards thing and the etiquette that exists with current day NASCAR. I mean, Tony mentioned it. Tony Stewart. I mean, I say Tony. Most people would know him as just Tony. He mentioned it. Juniors mentioned it. Gordon, Johnson, all these guys that retired here the last few years, all these legends, and how they were taught how to race relative to what's going on now, and some of the antics and some of the things that took place this weekend, relative to what we're going to have this coming weekend in a championship race, in a playoff championship race, which, to be fair, it's part of what makes NASCAR different than other formats where you're going to have everybody out there. You're not going to have mano-a-mano battles for a championship on the same court or field or track. Here, you're going to have, everybody and anybody. You're going to have cellar dwellers. You're going to have middle of the roaders, and then you're going to have the front line drivers. But this lack of respect and the driving standards and some of the just sheer inability to be able to handle your equipment, or in turn handle your equipment around somebody else, is not a good sign for the future of the sport, especially when you consider in the sense of NASCAR Cup Series racing going to the Gen 7 car, which will be more of a spec piece, a lot of expensive parts, new transmissions, 5-speed, probably should be a 6-speed, but they made it a 5-speed. It's the same transmission that they have in the Supercars championship. You're changing engines. You're still going to have the big ass spoiler on 1.5 mile racetracks for whatever reason. They're going to look more like the actual car. So they're hitting the old school fan, but there's a bunch of tech parts that are actually bringing it more to the new school, more to the current day. But my concern is, and I'm going to throw this to you first, Joe, they're going to be destroying a lot of equipment, starting at the LA Coliseum in February for the Clash. They're going to go and destroy more equipment during Daytona because they don't know how to drive around each other without destroying half the field. And there's going to be part shortages, and we're going to have problems filling fields. I mean, obviously the 36 charters, those cars will show up. I mean, will they look like a proper car? Will it look like a rent-a-wreck? I don't know. But you're going to have problems there. And if these guys aren't able to respect each other, it's going to be more than damaged cars. And I think that's a bad precedent to set as we move forward with the viability of the sport, which is my concern as a motorsport fan. But I don't know what your thoughts are in regards to that, in regards to Gen 7 and what you've seen this year with some of the driver etiquette and lack of respect that might have been out there.
Yeah, the lack of respect is real. I don't know if it's as bad as some are saying, but it has gotten worse. And there's no indication that is going to slow. I get what some of these former drivers have said, but you have to remember the sport has changed, right? And as the sport changes towards this more aggressive format, this more format where it's a lot of take, and not a lot of give, drivers inherently are going to have to learn that they need to take, and not give. So I don't necessarily fault that on the training of the drivers. Now, as far as the next gen car goes, I was very, very fortunate to be able to sit in not only on the media day announcement when they first announced all the specs of the next gen car. I was also very fortunate to be a part of the first public testing of the car. I was able to go to Charlotte and on Monday, a very cold Monday, be able to get to watch the first next gen cars make laps around the Charlotte Roval. I also got the opportunity to see up close the Toyota, the prototype next gen car. And I have to say, there's one very striking, very distinct feature that makes zero sense to me. The rear bumper is so round. If I put a few together, I could have a globe. Okay. What about NASCAR makes you put a round rear bumper? You're asking for crashes to happen, especially at these tracks you just mentioned. Daytona, the last few years, no matter which race you go to, has been crash left and right? I mean, how many cars finished the Daytona 500 earlier this year, right? In one piece, nonetheless. The Clash a few years ago, like 6 cars finished the race. And, putting a curved rear bumper is an awful idea, right? And I have to say, it's probably the only thing so far that I'll be so outspoken about, because I need to actually see the racing that this car produces, right? You can talk about, the diffuser is going to be great because it's going to reduce the effect of the dirty air, but you actually need to see how much it's reducing the effect. There's no scenario in my mind where NASCAR benefits from this really round rear bumper. And I know it probably sounds really strange, but it's so far the biggest complaint by far I have about the next gen car. You're asking for wrecks to happen. And you're putting them in a more durable car too. At least the body is. This composite body, you see it in the Xfinity series is great because drivers get into each other. They don't really cut down too many tires that way. And it holds up the race. You just hit it with a hammer and it goes right back into place. It's fantastic. I was very excited to hear that they're going to composite bodies, but this round bumper is super concerning. You put that and you tie it into this lack of respect. These drivers constantly getting into each other. Bang. I mean, look at Martinsville this past weekend. How many drivers did we see get into the rear bumper of somebody else? And they were still relatively straight, going straight. That's not going to happen with that because guess what? The nose of the Camaro next year is more pointy again. They took that out 2 years ago because what was the problem is it didn't line up with the bumper. When the bumpers don't line up, you wreck. So why create a universally round rear bumper for all 3 manufacturers? I don't know. I own a Camaro, okay? The rear bumper is not that round. It's pretty flat. So you talk about the main feature. They want to make these cars look like these street cars. Give them flat bumpers. Point blank. But that's my challenge to you, NASCAR. If anybody from NASCAR listens, flatten those bumpers, please, because they're going to wreck a lot.
It would be something if people from NASCAR actually listened to our show. I would love to have Probst or some of these idiot sticks that are that have high ranking positions in NASCAR that decide what these cars are about to go and listen to the show, because it'll probably blow their mind up. They wouldn't deal with it very well. A lot of great detail there, Joe. Stuff I definitely didn't know about the Gen 7. I mean, the round bumper part is definitely not a good thing. I'm going to send it to you, Josh. In regards to this car, in regards to what we are seeing right now, I bring up the likes of Corey Heim. I bring up Ty Gibbs, Sam Mayer. Those are 3 very young, talented drivers that I think have a future I know 2 of them have a future in this sport. Corey Heim, depending on finances, we'll see. He's kind of in that Chandler Smith, Todd Gilliland. I forget who the other guy was that was in the 18 truck or whoever, there's been a bunch of guys at Kyle Busch Motorsports in recent years. I mean, you have Drew Dollar racing this weekend and he can't drive a hot nail through snow. I mean, there's people like that, and you have the likes of Michael Annett who, mercifully is finally going to retire. The driving standard is not getting better. I think driving standard is dropping. And then in turn, the cost of racing was never going to go down. It's generally always going to go up. And when you're talking about equipment, especially on the Xfinity side with the composite body, and then of course with the Gen 7, with all the changes and all the money that has to be invested in there, it's a big time liability if you're going to be destroying equipment. But to me, the way they've scheduled things out to start next February, they basically want to, do a demo derby and see how everything works. And they're going to have 2 chances to do it, or 3, because you're going to have the Clash, you're going to have the duels, and then you're going to have the 500. And that's before, and then I didn't even think about practice. Talking about practice, like AI, they go in yard sale cars, at all different times of the day, as long as it's a day that ends with Y, they will yard sale cars at Daytona and Talladega. So I don't know what the path is here, but it doesn't sound like a path of success. It doesn't sound like a path of logic to me, but I don't know what you're thinking. What do you think, Josh, in regards to what we're seeing in driving standards over your time as a fan to where we are now and where we're going with this new car?
I mean, I definitely agree. Yeah, it's definitely gotten worse because if you look at the way like 20 years ago, there's a lot of give and take through races and everything. I mean, but then those races were also a lot different. They didn't have stage racing 20 years ago. The playoff format was still, 20 years ago now it was, it wasn't a thing yet. It hadn't been a thing until 2004. So there was still the whole patience thing that, you had to go through an entire race and take care of the car, take care of your competitors throughout the race. And, you didn't want to put yourself in a situation where you took someone out early. I mean, there are opportunities to get aggressive, of course, but you had to always be patient throughout entire race. And now we have stage racing, we have the playoffs, we have competition cautions now every race, and that puts a different element into it. And Joseph mentioned it earlier with the give and take part of it. Well, the reason why it's take now is because the opportunity is there. The system feeds into it. You have to be aggressive. You have to do things that normal other racing series would consider over aggressive. And Jeff Burton said it many times throughout the Xfinity broadcast and the Cup Series broadcast on Sunday, like, "Oh, your morals will be tested," or whatever. And that was something that kind of annoyed me, just because like if you had class. I mean, we saw it from Allmendinger most of the year. We've seen it from Cindric. Those guys come from road racing backgrounds where that type of stuff is really frowned upon. And Hemrick is maybe one of the last few guys that are coming from an oval background that still race with respect, because he had to be able to race, really, really well in coming up through the through the ranks in short tracks and
build his own stuff.
Late model stock cars and all of that stuff, super late models. So that's part of it too. The way that the system feeds into it now, you got guys that are going to get wrecked for wins. I kind of want to see, we talked about not liking the standard, but I am very interested to see if somebody gets wrecked for the championship, because it would actually expose the system, in my opinion. If let's say Sunday, Kyle Larson gets crashed for the win, and somebody else comes out on top, like, say Denny Hamlin comes out on top. A lot of people would say that was super unfair, and they would say, oh, well, if we went back to the old system, Kyle Larson definitely would have been the champion and all that stuff. And, it would give more credence to go back to what it was 20 years ago. So, maybe somebody has to break the system in order to and expose it for what it is in order to bring it back to the way things should be. So, that's definitely an interesting aspect. And I think the way that this system goes, it's just going to continue until, like I said before, until we have a major incident, drivers are drive over the top of each other. And I think the standard really is going to come down to restrictor plate races, super speedway races, because that's where all the accidents happen, and that's where I think you kind of see the lack of respect manifested. We've seen over the last 5 or 6 years the restrictor plate races they've had a lot of accidents caused by lack of respect, and had drivers this year really drive really aggressively throughout the middle of races when they shouldn't have. We've had aggressive bump drafting cause big ones. Caused a big one earlier this year in the Daytona 500. So that's definitely something to consider as well. And then one thing to consider with this new car. Remember going back to the beginning of Gen 6 all the way back in 2013. Remember how many cars that they crashed in testing through practice, through the shootout, through the duels and all that stuff. Remember Carl Edwards went through like 7 cars that Roush had to give him throughout that entire weekend. And that was just when they just had Daytona, and it was just contained to that week, 2 weeks of racing. And now we're adding in the clash. Well, that's a whole nother thing. But of course it is a composite body now, so it's going to be a little bit different. So cars might be a little bit more durable. But then, I also, with the rear bumper thing, which is actually was a really good point, because it's not as noticeable until you see it in person, I guess. But we're going to have more crashes and stuff. And they've talked about the chassis being a little stiff, and drivers, in early testing, William Byron wrecked and was noticeably sore or whatever after that. That's something we really don't know yet, is what happens when these guys get into a crash, and how stiff is that chassis going to be? Are we going to start seeing a lot more injuries or anything like that? I mean, I'd like to hope that that's not going to happen, and that they have actually tested that so that doesn't become a factor. But it's still something that people have been wondering about since we heard about those rumors back in the summer. So I think with the way that this chassis is designed, it's going to be interesting if we get into a big crash, especially at super speedway, where guys get into it and then somebody spins all the way into the wall, or we're going to see a injury or something like that, and definitely cause harm to the drivers. So it's going to be interesting. And then especially with the way that these cars, they have on the mile and a half, they're going to be running 650, big spoiler, everything. I mean, we know it might race differently than what it looks like, but still drivers are probably going to be on the throttle a lot, going to be close together. So it's going to just bring more opportunity for aggression, especially with the way that the system is already designed to do so now.
Yeah, we're going on 10 years since Tony Stewart had his epic. He went from we don't belong in the playoffs, we're just taking up a playoff spot, and then won the first 2 races of the playoff. Had a kind of poor few races after that. Won Martinsville after almost going a lap down, and then Texas, and of course Homestead. You're going from 10 years ago, you have that, to now we're talking about the possibility that a driver is just going to flat Jimmy Spencer somebody to win a championship, which, I mean, you could do that, but, I mean, everybody is going to see the replay. They're going to replay it 5,000 times that you just move somebody or wreck somebody to win. It's not kosher. I mean, I was an old Ernie Irvin fan back in the day, and he wrecked people left and right. Whether it's unintentional, he had something to die with it, but he wrecked a lot of people to the point where he had to go and apologize. Now, a lot of these drivers don't even feel like they have to do that, and I think that's part of the reason why we are where we are with some of the driving standards that we have. It's an unfortunate byproduct of that, but we will see what happens in 2022 in regards to that, and see if anything really changes. I think one other question I'm going to ask Joe and Josh, these charters, especially in the Cup Series. I mean, Chip Ganassi just talked about how valuable the charters were for him. Of course, being a multimillionaire, I don't know if it really matters in his case, but I think the charters and who has charters and where they go and how do they go and affect who has the ability to make every race. You could have a rent-a-wreck, but as long as you show up every week, you're guaranteed a purse, you're guaranteed all these things. I think that's a byproduct of why JTG Doherty, one of a couple reasons that JTG Doherty is going down to one car, because they had to run an open car all year and they're making no money on it. And of course, Ryan Preece, God bless his soul, has struggled. He won a truck race earlier in the year, but it's been a struggle in the Cup Series, and he's probably going to go back to running mods. And, he's probably going to make more money than he does. I mean, make a lot of money doing that, but it's not the same as running the Cup Series, and it's because there's no charter. 2311, as it stands, does not have a charter for Kurt Busch, but he has a past champions provisional for 4 races or 5 races before that whole thing changes. Joe, I'm going to ask, or actually, Josh, I'm going to ask you first. In regards to the charters, I mean, the charter system in its own right, Chip Ganassi sold it just now to where it looks like this amazing thing. But is it really truly helping the overall health and growth of our sport? These charters and limiting who can show up versus who can, or whatever way you want to talk about it.
I mean, I think for the current, ownership in NASCAR for, who exists, it helps them have, I guess, like some type of equity in the series, and it also gives them value for the team if they decide to sell and leave the sport. They don't have to go entirely penniless or go bankrupt trying to sell a team. You just get out of there, get out of Dodge quickly, and take their money and go home. So I think it helps people like that. But then on the other end, you have teams that continuously over the years have to sell charters to other teams to help that team get in, or you have other teams like 2311 that need to be able to buy a charter in order to expand and have security in the series and not have to worry about using the provisional or anything like that. And then, of course, you have teams like Spire that have been able to kind of start and park races, some races. I mean, they've been able to run better now. They've got Corey LaJoie running, mid 20s now at most races, sometimes, between top 10, top 15 every now and then. But they started out as start and park, and they were able to kind of just use or take advantage of the system to be able to build up their team, which I guess is fine for them. But then there is also teams like, your worst enemy, Rick Ware Racing, who seems like they're just there to exist and be in the way, and eventually maybe Rick Ware is just going to acquire all the charters, and NASCAR is going to become Rick Ware Racing, which, probably be Philip's worst nightmare. So there's also that. And I think the concern is it's going to reward teams like Rick Ware that have that ability just to use the charters, and they're just there. They're not going to do anything with it. They're not going to grow their teams. They're just going to, provide slow cars that are in the way. So if we have more teams like Trackhouse, 2311 that come in able to be more competitive, move up to the Cup Series, and we've got GMS coming in next year, colleagues coming in next year. Junior Motorsports could potentially finally come up to the Cup Series. It's going to be interesting if they can get them up, go up there. But then also it's going to be a challenge because as the years go on, the charters are going to continue to get more expensive. So there's a lot of things to play, and some people have to question if they're in it just for the money, or if they're actually in it to truly provide value for the series and actually compete and provide value for their teams.
Sure. Yeah, it's something that we're gonna have to see. I mean, Ganassi has come out in favor of it because Justin Marks gave him a deal he couldn't refuse. But I think, Joe, in regards to these charters, they've been controversial from the start. I honestly would love to dig into the books of not only Spire Motorsports and what they're doing, but I would like to venture into what, a couple of these, the people are going to go and make a deal with that, or they're going to save. I get that back in the day, you're going to only get pennies on the dollar for your stuff, but you have to go and think about the short term and the long term now, I guess, in regards to your ability to go make things happen. And the charter may be a good thing, may not be a good thing. It gives more equity, I guess, relative to what they had at that point. But in turn, what is it worth in the grand scheme of this sport, and maybe for other series within the area of Cup?
Yeah, so I think definitely the biggest beneficiaries of the charter system, just in general, are the bigger teams with more business backing and more money. For them, probably relatively easier to get a charter. But I think what made this whole charter, again, you already said was already controversial, but what I think really even made it more controversial was when they announced the next gen car, because one of the big selling points about the car was that it was going to be cheaper. Now, of course, your investment your initial investment in the coming years and what's already been invested in 2021 for some teams and what will come in 2022 and 23, those years are going to be expensive, the first few years. I think what I read midsummer, I think it was a piece that either Jordan Bianchi or Jeff Gluck put together, was they're probably not going to start to actually see savings until the third or the fourth year of running this car. And that's a whiles out, right? That's 3 or 4 years that you as a business owner can tank, right? You have to be really calculated with that risk. And that was something that Dale Jr. had mentioned on one of the downloads that he does, was that, the price you're getting the charter at has to be right, because the initial investment is going to be severely high. It's great that in the long run they're going to save money, and hopefully that is something that does indeed happen. Now, as far as the competition aspect of the charters goes, there needs to be a modification. There really does. I don't care if they keep the charters and they bump them down maybe to 25. And the way that you get them is not through business, is through your performance, right? Where maybe in 2021, the top 25 teams in points get charters and a guaranteed spot in all races in 2022. I don't know if that's something that they move forward. I really wouldn't even mind if they just got rid of them altogether. With the next gen car, we've already seen how many teams are invested that aren't currently in the Cup Series. You have a racer from Europe who's going to come over, and he's going to do some part-time next year with the goal of doing full-time in the future. GMS that's a big leap for GMS, not even going to do Xfinity. They're jumping right to Cup from the trucks, and then Colleague Racing getting in on it full-time with 2 charters. I'm not exactly clear if they intend on running that charter the full season, the second one that Justin Haley won't have, or if that one will be a lease for some races that Allmendinger doesn't drive. But I really think it's detrimental, because once you get past those 25 cars that are from the big teams, right? You have the Hendrick cars, the Stewart cars, the Gibbs cars, the Penske cars, that the bigger half of the field. Once you get past those cars to some of the other cars that own charters, the 00, Quinn Houff. Now, I know they've already announced that Starcom is going to expire at the end of the year. And then, and Rick Ware Racing is probably at the forefront of all of this, right? You have those guys who are on the track who are just wrecking. And it seems like that's what they're doing every single week, is just wreck every single week. And I think in some cases it's like, okay, whatever. But the thing that really bothers me about them being on track and them wrecking is the fact that it's dangerous to the drivers who are running at the front and lapping them. It's just, to me, I don't feel like, as a fan, the product has benefited from the charters. I feel like the product has gotten worse. And I understand you also have to satisfy the business aspect. But hopefully we're going to get to the point in a few years where NASCAR's word holds true, that the next gen car does actually decrease the overall cost in investment, where we can get rid of these charters, because the investment for a business to come in to start another team is low enough to where you don't have to entice them to buy a charter to run all the races. It's very interesting, because I do think you could end up hurting some of the bigger businesses like a Hendrick, like a Joe Gibbs, a Penske, where they're making money on their investment. But I'm also afraid that if you were to keep these charters in for too long, you're going to see so much inflation. I mean, I was reading, and again, I think this was a piece by Gluck or Bianchi, where in 2020, or maybe the 2019 to 20 off season, these charters were going for $6 million. And now you're talking 10, 12 million for a charter. I mean, that is a ton of money. And more than likely in a single season, you are not profiting from that investment. It's going to take 2 years or 3 years before you start to see a turnover of profit from your investment on a charter. Unless you have a guy like Kyle Larson, who, he's won 9 races, then it's a different story. But not every team is going to win 9 races. It's impossible. So definitely interesting. And I think it's maybe not something we're going to get an answer to next year, or even the year after that. I do think we are going to have to see what happens with the next gen car over the long term to understand where the charters are headed.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, I get their Rick Ware this year made a concerted effort to run well in IndyCar, and it's helped out Roman Grosjean in his move from Europe and Formula One to IndyCar to now being in a top flight ride. They've made the connection with Stuart Haas the same way as Ryan Sieg's group. I feel like they're just basically absorbed the 98 and they're going to run to 39 and 98 or 38, 98, whatever. It's the same way as, Starcom going away. They didn't have enough points. They were going to lose it anyway. But then they didn't have money and, Quinoff is not good. You have the Rick Ware cars. And my thing is like, you have that, and you have the Spire, how they're able to acquire all of these charters because they're a marketing firm first before an actual racing team. But in turn, you're changing the value of the whatever each one that you have based on whatever transaction you did the last time. And you're leaving out the likes of Dale Jr., you're leaving out the likes of some of these other big dogs that are and great people that aren't able to buy in to what's going on. And I guess for better or worse, it was the same thing as the top 35 rule, the provisionals before the top 35 rule. It's the good and bad. You're going to have the value based on getting that charter, but what are you going to do with that charter? And are you going to be able to see a return on that investment? It's if you're Chip Ganassi and you've invested 20-something years in the sport, that's why the punishments aren't a punishment for him, because he's looking at the bottom line. And of course, Justin Marks is also looking at the bottom line. They leased a Spire one, and now they have two full ones. They're going to run Justin Haley all year, and then they'll figure out what they do with the second car. But I don't know. I think it's because it's not just because Rob Kaufman made him, and he's going to profit hand over fist when he's already a multi-millionaire. But it's something where you have certain teams that have too many of them. They're able to access them because these smaller teams basically dissolve. And then when you have to actually compete, most of them aren't able to. And I think that's embarrassing, especially when you consider how long the season is and how good a lot of these other teams are. And you can't do that, then you're not here to go and compete. It's more like you're just making up the numbers. And I don't think that that's acceptable under any circumstances. With that, I think if you're available next week, Joe, we'll have you back on to kind of recap everything that took place this coming weekend in regards to NASCAR, and maybe any other takes you have. But before you go, because I don't want to keep you too long, I also know Josh has to work. I know I have off, and considering how rough my week has been, I could probably go for another hour or two, but I don't want to hold you guys up. Where can we find you on the socials, Joe? Where can we find your work, written work, and anything else that you would like to plug?
Thank you. So you can find me on Twitter at Passero Jr. That is PASSEROJR. And rather than Last Out Media now, you can find me over on beyondtheflag.com. It's one of FanSided's many sites that they run. It's dedicated just to motorsports. There's a lot of F1 content, a lot of NASCAR content. Of course, my primary area of expertise. And that's all. Not just Cup, you have Xfinity and truck pieces there as well. I've had a lot of fun writing for them, actually. I just had an article published about what I believe is probably the most important, or most influential, rather, track in the 21st century. So head over to beyondtheflag.com if you want to check that out and read that and see what my thoughts are. Love hearing from people on Twitter. My Twitter growth since the last show, which I know was it started at the beginning of the year, is really grown. I love coming on. I love doing these podcasts, and writing is a ton of fun for me, especially when I get to do it in something that I really enjoy, like racing. So again, Passero Jr. on Twitter, beyondtheflag.com, one of FanSided's networks, and that's where you find me. And yeah, so I'll have to look at my schedule for next week, because by this time next week, I will be not in the current state that I am. I'll be on vacation. But if I can find the time, you bet I'm going to be on here. I love coming out I've been waiting since the Daytona road course. I've just had so many things going on where I haven't been able to get back on. But if we can't make next week work, please, 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 Daytona next year.
No, we have time. We have the off season prior to the it will have, I mean, Thanksgiving, we still have Formula One going on, but prior to the Christmas and New Year break that we take, probably do a little NASCAR recap for sure. Anything else in regards to your sports fandom, probably can bring it up by that point, depending on football. Hopefully our teams are still in it. I mean, I'm not so sure about Josh's team. The Niners are barely in it. My fantasy team is barely in it right now, and I'm about to go and take a dump against my best friend's team, who, you know, has everybody. And my quarterback faked getting a vaccine, and my number one running back got hurt for the year. And I've got the most points for, and I have the most points against. Sorry I'm making this about me here, but it is my show. But thank you so much, Joe. Great job as always. I mean, you have great passion, and you have great information. It's something that's lacking amongst those hard card people. The passion and the fandom and the respect for what this is about versus what it has become. And credit to you, and I hope in whatever, not just what you do to make money, but this passion can ride out. To me, I got into it too late. I have this, and it does the job for me, and I'm hoping it'll take off in its own way. But I also know that I want to support guys like you that actually are able to do this and hopefully rise up, you know, the same way as like Joey Barnes, who did such a great job with us earlier in the year, and has become a big dog at Racer Magazine and elsewhere. Hopefully that's where you go. You know, Kelly Crandall is there, and she's a great writer. But I know they wouldn't be bad off to have somebody like you out there too, to go and support that coverage and promote things. And hopefully we're able to help you on that. And we're all open door whenever you're available, have you on for that content. Because to be fair, somebody has to pick up the slack, because Josh watches. I don't as much anymore. But it's a racing podcast, so we have to cover NASCAR. It's going against my religion at this point to go and talk about it, but you know, there's certain people that listen because of that, and I have old friends that listen because of that, so I still stick it through. I mean, maybe if Chase Briscoe actually turns around next year in his second year and actually runs well, I might care more, but you know, rookie blues. But thanks again, Joe, for your time. I appreciate you, and we'll definitely have you on whenever you're available. You let us know when you're free, and we'll bring you back on again for another guest spot here on the GSP.
Thank you so much. Honestly, hearing all that, it means the world to me. It's, you know, I graduated college in May. I've been left and right trying to break my foot into the door of racing. I was very fortunate with Last Out, and very fortunate with FanSided, and you know, wherever I end up, I do hope that I'm able to continue to grow, not just as a fan and a journalist, but also as a person. So, and thank you guys for the opportunity. This is a lot of fun. I used to have my own podcast when I was in college. Didn't do so well, didn't do too hot. So I stuck more towards the writing, but this is a lot of fun for me to come out and to talk with you guys. So thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll definitely let you know when I'm available next.
Yep, I went the other way. I realized I'd like to just go and yell in my own echo chamber, and I really, and it is what it is in that sense. But I know the writing, I have it in me too, but I know I can show up once a week and do this for sure. The motivation and the effort that it takes, especially the way things have become now. It's much harder in my mind and my end, through my life and my age and everything, to do the writing, but I can get up for this. In your case, youth and the hunger and all that, you're the future, bro. and we'll support you here on this show and whatever other shows you go on. Follow Joe, because we're gonna see you. You're gonna probably get a hard card, and we're probably not gonna be able to have you on because we're off color here on the GSP. But if you want to go off the grid, you want to go under an assumed name. We don't post on YouTube, so you could go under an assumed name.
Yeah, we should though.
But yeah, we'll see. That's 2022. We'll get there. Executive producers working on stuff. But the actual audio goes out on YouTube on most of these episodes recently. So if we do go out on video, then you just have to wear a lucha mask. I'll wear my mullet hat, and then we'll all be fine. And so thanks again, brother. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if your predictions. Josh didn't bring out the algorithm, which almost broke the internet when he picked Tate Fogelman to win, and it happened. If what's his name? If Cesar Baccarella had won the Xfinity race at Talladega, I don't think the show would exist anymore, because I think I might have jumped off a bridge, because that would have been the end of days for me as a motorsports fan. It's like Milka Duno winning an IRL race. It would have been that bad. But hey,
we
the algorithm
gotta do for this.
Yeah, got to ring it out. We might as well on the show as we get out for this episode. We'll definitely bring the algorithm out because you have 1 in 4 shot. But thanks, Joe. You have a good evening, Joe. And we'll see you around here probably during December to kind of close out this NASCAR season. A lot has gone on here, and a lot more to discuss, really. I don't even think we scratched the surface with all the stuff we really could have discussed.
Yeah, thank you again, guys. You guys have a great night. To everybody listening to the show, have a great night. Enjoy the rest of the season. As far as NASCAR goes, we only have 1 race left, but for all you Formula One fans, we still have some season left. Enjoy your season as well. And that's all I got for tonight. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you, brother. And we will kind of move forward. Got to kind of rush through everything here now. We basically hit everything we wanted to hit there on that. The Roundup, I'm going to go and rush through the Roundup here. They were at Sydney last week for the Supercars. Last weekend, David Reynolds, while I'm trying to go and recover a page, wins real. Oh, look at that. Okay, well, at least we're not going to have the end of days in this state. Reynolds benched for Supercars Sydney swing because he's just like Will Power and Chad Reed about vaccinations and other things, and because he's an idiot stick, whatever, that's his choice. It's part of the reason why he's never won. He's won the Bathurst 1000, which is good for him in his career. That's why he has Penrite as a sponsor, but he can't make up for the fact ignorance is bliss, but it isn't going to make up for the fact that you're going to end up getting sick because you're a jackass. Credit to David Reynolds for that. He wants to make his kids and his family sick. Good for him. Race 1 at Sydney. Anton De Pasquale won over Shane Van Gisbergen and Brody Kostecki. Nick Percat, Will Brown was your top 5. Race 2, Shane Van Gisbergen, Will Davison, who had a chance, had some bad luck. Nick Percat, Brody Kostecki, Tim Slade, your top 5. And then in race 3, Anton De Pasquale gets a double, 2 out of 3. Will Brown, Jamie Winchcup, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Will Davison. So the Dick Johnson cars had a good weekend, but of course the Triple Eight cars had a good weekend as well. They've dominated this season. Shane Van Gisbergen is well out in front in this championship. He's got nearly 400, or he's got over a 330-point lead there. 338 and then 338. Yeah, so it's like he's got near a 340-point lead on Jamie Winchcup in his last year. as a driver. He'll be the team principal starting next year of what has been Triple Eight racing. Will Davison is in third in points. He has a battle with Chaz Moster. He's only 33 points ahead. Cam Waters is fifth. So that battle's 30 and 30, so 65 points. Cam Waters out of third. So that is a battle that we're going to see run out till the end of the year. Anton De Pasquale with this great weekend got up to sixth, Percat seventh, Frosty in eighth, Will Brown ninth, and Brody Kostecki, after a great weekend, is now in 10th. The other race that took place was the WEC Bahrain 6 hour, and then the importance and title bid, UFEA for LMD8, blah, blah, blah. You have the results of the 6 hour at Bahrain. Saw the combination of Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi, and Jose Maria Lopez beat their teammates Buemi, Nakajima, and Hartley by 51 seconds. And the Alpine hypercar of Nicolas Lapierre and Negrão and Mathieu Vaxivière finished on the podium but a lap behind. They those are the three that were able to finish, the three that actually ran, because everybody else was LMP2s or the GT and Pro or whatever. Wow, Kush Miney, another brown guy. So that's Arjun's brother, I assume. Finding out brown guys are racing sports cars too. They and then they're going to be running their finale this coming weekend. Mike Conway is retiring from the WEC. Kamui Kobayashi has or Kazuki Nakajima has announced that he's gonna step back from racing with Toyota. And then Davidson, who works for Sky F1. So I assume Sky F1's gonna utilize him more during the year, or he might do some touring cars or something. He's to retire from racing. Oh yeah, so he's gonna do more TV, I guess. So we'll see what happens with that, with Toyota and their inter-team battle for the WEC championship here in 2021. We'll go to MotoGP. Moto2 will be at the Algarve this coming weekend. Marc Marquez had a training accident. He won't be racing. Still progressing very slow. So the VR46 team, the team that Valentino Rossi, the Ducati program that he will be the team principal of, still don't have championship. Non-air moto, it would have been short-sighted. Split with a long time. Petronas Social Team has mutual agreement. Teams are getting RNF Racing, and Jessima Rizzali and Team Air. Blah, blah, blah. Interesting. And Binder would come in the team alongside factory Divizioso. Binder, younger brother Brad, getting a 2021 spec bike. Okay. Going into the points this weekend, Quartararo, of course, is the MotoGP world champion, so he's gonna be running out the rest of the season. Kind of a last 3 rounds of the championship will kind of be a coronation of sorts for him. Pecco Bagnaia, Joan Mir have stuff to race for. Johan Zarco, Jack Miller, Marc Marquez, of course, is going to miss the race, so he's going to lose ground. Brad Binder has a chance to pass him. Marc Marquez, that's only, 16 points between 4th and 7th. Joan Mir is kind of his own zone. He's 27 points beyond Pecco Bagnaia, who is in second. In Moto2, the Americans, I'll just focus on that. Remy Gardner's got an 18-point lead on Raul Fernandez. Joe Roberts is 13th. He is 26 points out of the top 10 as of now. And then Cameron Beaubier is 16th in points, 20 points out of 13th, which is Joe Roberts. The Mexican Grand Prix will be the next piece that we will discuss. Josh, I figure we keep it simple here. Who do you look at to have the advantage? Is it going to be Red Bull or Mercedes? And if so, does that deviate in regards to does that make any change in regards to your pick? Or is it going to be Max? Is it going to be Lewis? Or maybe is it going to be one of their teammates? Can Sergio Perez go out there and actually steal the home victory and be like the Rodriguez brothers and win on that circuit in this spot, which would help them in the Constructors' Championship for sure, and steal points away from Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes?
I mean, it's interesting with the way that this battle's going to come down here at Mexico. You have Lewis Hamilton won 2016 and 2019 at this track. Max Verstappen won 2017, 2018. So both these guys have won here before. They have had history at this track. I think at this point in the season, though, this racetrack probably fits Red Bull more than Mercedes, but of course we won't really truly know that until they start first practice and have the qualifying and all that stuff. So I probably lean towards Max Verstappen in this race to extend his championship lead over Lewis Hamilton. Of course, Lewis, this is a must-win scenario for him in order to keep a foot in this championship battle. If he doesn't win, he's going to get further behind and not come out with the title. And if he does win, it extends his chance to be able to at least catch Lewis Hamilton here in this championship battle. I think for Red Bull, I think they're going to give both their drivers, especially Sergio Perez. I think they're going to give him a good shot at winning, or well, not winning, but certainly a good car, wanting to impress the hometown fans for Red Bull and for Mexico. So I think Sergio Perez, I mean, wouldn't be shocked if he wins, but I definitely do expect him to, at the very least, compete for a podium on Sunday. It's going to be an interesting race, especially for some of the midfield as well. What's McLaren going to do this week? How are they going to fare up against Ferrari, and are they going to be able to beat Ferrari on pace this weekend and be able to in a head-to-head matchup, I guess essentially is what it's going to come down to relative to the field. Are they going to be able to beat out Ferrari during the race? I think for other drivers, I mean, Valtteri Bottas, also Mercedes, expect him to compete for a podium, but ultimately I think he gets bested by Sergio Perez and his other teammate Lewis Hamilton. So it's going to be interesting there. I think other things to look at here. I mean, you have the some of the other midfield like Alpine. They've haven't had a good couple of races. They had both DNFs at USGP. Do they kind of get back under the footing and maybe have a better finish and finish in top 10? But I think overall focus is going to be on the two top teams, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, Red Bull versus Mercedes. Again, I think the track favors probably Red Bull than Mercedes, but then I think you also have to look at some of the midfield stuff too with Ferrari versus McLaren there.
Yeah, I think the battle for third in constructors is a set. I mean, it's all about Lewis and Max. Can Lewis, they've had their engine changes. You have Max, he's done engine changes. Will the being with the altitude with Mexico City has been an issue before, especially with the turbo engines over the time. Will that suit Honda versus Mercedes or vice versa? I think it's out there on motorsport.com or elsewhere that Valtteri Bottas said that's, their engines are perfect for where they're at right now to go and run out this next week or two running there and at Brazil. with the conditions they're going to be dealing with. Will that be the case? I mean, as you said, Lewis needs to win. It's now a case where Max can he's not a conservative driver by any stretch, but he can be conservative. There's also the fact that Sergio Perez is much better than Valtteri Bottas at this moment. He's at home. He has the motivation. He's never truly had a chance to win this race until now. So I mean, are they gonna pull tactics if they're both running 1-2 to steal the win from Sergio Perez? It would be akin to what Ferrari used to do with Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello. If that happens, I doubt it. I think Max, as of now, I mean, I'm going against my fandom, but Max Verstappen's been the better driver, and I think he wins. I'll say that I pick Sergio to win the pole. It's going to be a Red Bull sweep of the front row, but in the end, Max gets the win on Sunday, and Lewis is within reason, but finishes second and loses more ground in the World Championship. I mean, I think it's something that we have to look at. And I mean, when it comes to Ferrari and McLaren, it's a race by race basis. Who's going to be up there? Who has the car for a certain track? There are certain tracks that McLaren's good at, certain tracks Ferrari. I think this is more of a Ferrari track, but then last race was more of a Ferrari track. So I think those two. So then Brazil would be more of a McLaren track, and then with Qatar, kind of a toss-up. The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix is a street course. Seems like a toss along with Abu Dhabi. So every point counts in regards to them. The little points for Aston Martin and the Alpine teams to try and compete and get more of that prize money as we go through into the 2022 Formula One season. Let's see here. Just give me a moment. Mexican Grand Prix. We did all that. I mean, there is some news in regards to some of the drivers that are going to be going in a Formula 2, Formula 3, etc., etc. Luke Yulden will be in the 26 car for David Reynolds. We have some F1. Alex Brundle, Saucy, whoever Saucy. And Clement Novalak will drive F2 for Jedi team, or at Jedi for MP Motorsports before taking on a full season in 2022. Let's go with you, Josh, in regards to the Jags and what things are looking like for you on that side versus fantasy. I do have the list here. You ended up getting you lost overall, or you lost in your matchup, but you're in the top 5 this week. So in the end, you were able to sneak a point in regards to double record, but unfortunate tough loss this week in fantasy for you.
Yeah, it was a tough weekend overall in sports for me. I mean, outside of racing, that's mostly for fun and entertainment now, and being able to watch good racing. But then the sports side of things with football, college football was a bad weekend. The Jags took a step back against Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks aren't really that great this year. They've got bad cornerbacks. They've got bad Geno Smith isn't really that great of a quarterback, but they made him look like one. They, looked like the Jags from the first game of the year for the most part. Trevor Lawrence threw a lot of short stuff this past week. One deep pass that got intercepted basically, and didn't have anything to show for it. James Robinson got hurt, and I think that changed the trajectory of the offense of their game plan that they wanted to have, and a lot of penalties that they had, a lot of procedural stuff that shouldn't really be a factor now. Now a lot of people again are questioning Urban Meyer and his ability to coach an NFL team, and it's not looking good again. He's not doing what he's what we thought he'd be doing, and really wonder how long he's going to be the coach, if he's it's going to be a one and done thing, and they fire everybody, which is going to be really bad because came in with all this hype and everything, and I know that they paid him a lot of money to be the coach, probably one of salary wise top 5 in the league, probably in money, and then of course part of it was to be able to coach Trevor, to be able to have a facility that they're going to be building in Jacksonville. So that's all part of it, but we'll see what happens. They play Buffalo Bills this week, so it's going to be a tough matchup, but of course could be an upset matchup or one of those trap games where they take Buffalo to the brink and ultimately lose, or they somehow manage to pull out a win. So we'll see. And then college, Florida lost to Georgia. They got beat pretty handily. It was a really bad game overall. I mean, initially it was 0-0, then 3-0 Georgia, and then last 2 minutes of the second half, Georgia scored 21 points, 2 of them coming off interceptions. So that was not good. And then game got away from UF at that point. And for me as a former Gator alumni and as a Gator fan, I mean, I feel like the Florida Georgia game is the game that decides the season overall for Florida. If they go on to the SEC championship game to go on face Alabama and actually compete in the college football playoff or get a really good bowl game matchup, they have to be able to win that game. And Dan Mullen has not been able to recruit well during his time in Florida. I mean, they've had a lot of exciting plays and stuff like that, but just haven't had the same type of talent that they need to be able to compete against Georgia, to be able to compete against Alabama. So I feel like there's going to be talk now of him getting fired, and I have a feeling it might happen during the off season. They'll probably figure out something and buy out his contract and let him go. So we'll see what happens down in the swamp for that. But then, of course, fantasy lost to Vic. Then my other league, I lost to my brother, so that was not good either. And just didn't have the matchups I needed overall. But I have to question Vic here because he made 2 trades over the weekend, and he traded quarterbacks, traded multiple wide receivers, running backs. I mean, I almost want to accuse him of collusion in everything. With whoever he traded as, I don't know. I didn't like that he made multiple trades over the weekend and then managed to still beat me and all that. Like, I was like, how do you do that? How do you trade one quarterback and then not even use him, then trade him again? I mean, and I don't know. That didn't sit well with me for some reason.
Well, the fact is, you can put in your complaint with me, and then we'll put it to a chat. And the fact is, I could also have Vic come on next week as part of the show. I could arrange that, and you could actually have the debate live on air. That would actually be pretty cool. That's a good idea. I'm gonna write that down. Just give me a moment here while I collect my thoughts. As the 49ers, so Vic for week of 11-10 GSP to debate Josh, good old ESTMZN faux sports style. We'll do like Skip Bayless and Stephen A. And I'll just get out of the way. We can do that. In my end, I mean, I wasn't feeling great about a lot of things last few days for multiple reasons. Bowling wise was good on Tuesday night. We took a sweep of the number 1 team in the league. I bowled 187 average on my end. My teammates came through, so we all kind of carried through. It was tight. Every game was, the first 2 games were tight. Third game, we kind of got ahead of them. So we'll take that. We're going to move up in that. Niners won. Jimmy Garoppolo learned how to run. I think, honestly, I've been saying to anybody and everybody, they might as well paint Levi Stadium like Soldier Field, because when he plays at Soldier Field, because it's home, he turns into a different guy. He looks like an elite quarterback because he's not an elite quarterback. Now Trey Lance is healthy, and all of a sudden he's showing up. You fucking bitch. You could have done that against the Indianapolis Colts, and they'd have the last wild card spot. But instead, you got beat by Sam Darnold. I don't get it. Brandon Ayuk finally made it onto a football field, and all of a sudden you have spacing. You can actually pass the ball because you have two targets they actually have to defend. And that's before you get GK back, which you're going to get him back here in this next week or two. I mean, there's the reality is this weekend's game is Arizona. Kyler Murray's hurt, but he's probably going to play. The following week's a Monday Night Football game against the LA Rams. So I think this season for the Niners is going to be determined here in this next 2 weeks, to be fair. You've already given up so much ground to these two teams anyway. If you can at least split, if you can get the Arizona win, you make it interesting against the Rams. You know, right now they're 0-2 in division, so they need to win one of these games to keep it reasonable. Probably win both. If they win both, then it flips the script for their season and hopefully puts them in a position to get that last wild card spot. In regards, the Bills, of course, they're playing Jacksonville. Josh Allen trying to get that elusive Super Bowl for the Buffalo faithful, or whatever, the Buffalo fans, or the Niners are the faithful. I know it's like we're going into that during league on Mondays because one of the people there is a San Francisco 49ers fan. Yeah, Colorado and the Knicks are doing bad. What a shocker. But yeah, when you're talking about where was it for football, fantasy football, to bring up my teams here. Just a second. Fantasy football, fantasy home. Last week I got destroyed by Luke, a fellow 49er fan who's basically been leaking oil all year, but decided to come good against me. This week I have to play Wilson, who's the number one team in the league. He's 8-0. Josh gets Manny, who's not even looking at his team, it seems like. Joe will get Professor J. Luke will go and get Nikki. Right now giving up pins. CM, the Vic will play Demi there in regards to this week. And when it comes to over recovered points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and then 5 for Josh. And then what is it? I was 6th or 7th actually, because so it was a brutal week in fantasy. Got destroyed by a team that's not good, and that is what it is on the one league. In the other league, in this league it's a little bit more consistent shot, and so we'll see what happens with that. I was able to take a W by a pretty wide margin, so we'll take that. We're in third in that fantasy league. In regards to the sleeper league, which I know about sleeper because I'm falling asleep right now. Trying to bring that up. Trying to go and find the sleeper app. There you go. Right now we're going into whatever, this is week 9. Jeez. Just lost a track of that right there. I'm trying to go and bring up my other team here. We're called Concussion Protocol in this league. It's a 12-team keeper. I need one more. 11. Need 10 or 12 changes. Not people out there play, but I'm cool with things. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. We're currently in a we had a rough start to the league, and then we've kind of moved forward. Right now we are 9th out of 12, given up what amounts to, I think, the most points in the league so far. Or we're close. We're only 7 points behind, but we're back in it. We were out of it, but we're now back in it. We're, in regards to the top 3, it's only 1 game or 1 point. There's 2 points otherwise to third. So we're still in it. still have a chance. Hopefully it all comes out for us. Josh, let us know what you're doing on the sim side of things and where we can go and find you in general in regards to socials.
Yeah, I mean, this week iRacing did Martinsville, just like in real life NASCAR racing in Martinsville. Decided to do the sim side on Martinsville this week, and it's interesting. I've never raced at Martinsville before, but have experience on it from NR03, from all that stuff, and it's good stuff there. Racing short tracks is normally what I don't do because a lot of the contact, you get a lot of the license penalties or whatever if you get an incident points and all that stuff, and that affects your license in iRacing. So I try to stay away from it. But and Martinsville is like one of my favorite tracks, so it's good. Being able to do heavy braking in the corners and then have that arc your entry into the middle of the corner, and then have that strong get off a turn. Turn 2 and turn 4 in there. So that was good. Did a little bit of Miata racing as well. The Mazda Miata at, I think at Oulton Park, in Australia. So that was a good run there. Always a fun race to run with the Miata. Fun car to drive around. So that was pretty much all I did in sim racing this week. But of course, you can follow the sim racing channel and all the other gaming stuff, Twitch TV/YourSailor2. That's where that'll be. And then, go ahead and lead into the Twitter stuff as well. I mean, as always, follow Twitter at JP Huffine. We'll share the show and all that stuff, and talk about the races this weekend. We'll talk about football, all that stuff. So it should be interesting with all the matchups, all the discussions. Of course, again, birthday tomorrow, so it should be good. Gonna have to go to work, of course, but afterwards probably try to do something fun and all that stuff. So definitely look forward to tomorrow and everything like that. So be able to do all that stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Happy birthday again to you, brother. Thank you for everything you do for not only me, for the show. There's plenty of times where I've been out of it or I've had stuff going on, but you've been able to carry the load and bring the great information. Enjoy, don't party too hard. It is a work day, so you have to make it on Friday. I mean, you probably have better situation where you can probably call out, but probably take it easy. Unless you're going to become the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback, then that's a whole other thing, because then you'd have to do a lot of crushing to try to get ready for the Buffalo Bills, which is probably not the team you want to go and start your first one. We'll start again, but that's beside the point. In regards to things are falling off of my desk. Cat skid steer loader. You can follow me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can follow the show at Grip Strip Pod. You can see the show or in video or listen to it on philipgmatthew.com. And we're going to go and talk about NASCAR, the tripleheader. We're going to talk about MotoGP and Moto2 at Algarve, 6 hours. Or Sakir 8 hour Supercars last week, and at Sydney they'll be there this week. So plenty of action to discuss, plenty of action to see. And of course, NASCAR will close. Want to thank Joe Passero again for coming on from FanSided to talk about NASCAR, and hopefully we'll have him back here in the next few weeks. But with that, I'm Phil. That's Josh. We thank you for listening to Grip Strip Podcast, episode 85 of the show, and look forward to having you listen more in the future. Take care. God bless. Good night.